With your right hand over your heart, ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
There are no amendments.
Okay, public comments. I don't have any cards. Is there anyone who would like to speak to the Camarillo Library Board about an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one come forward, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we have a huge agenda on the other items tonight, so there are no departmental or legal items, comments from staff,
Richard, did you have any items?
No comments, Your Honor.
comments from library. I keep calling us board members because I don't want to call us trustees. So I'm sorry. Are there comments from trustees?
Just one.
Yes.
Bill Little and I had a chance to do a tour of the new high school that's being built. They're moving along. I think they'll have those classrooms below, not the theater, but the classrooms that are the technology classrooms. I think they'll be finished by August or September when they're ready to go. I'm impressed by what they've been doing. It looks really nice. And also we talked about our part with the library for them, and they really appreciate it.
Yeah. Good. Any other comments from trustees?
I would just add, Madam Chair, that they're depending on us to provide the library service. They made it very clear to us.
Okay. No public hearings, so this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, I'd like to call the regular Camarillo Sanitary District meeting for May 13th to order, and let the record reflect that all the members are present. Any amendments to this agenda?
And no amendments.
Public comments on CamSan tonight? Let's move down to item 3. It's the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. So that gets us down to item 5 with the legal counsel. I understand we're going to take that at the second session on the council agenda. Is that right, Counselor? From what I understand?
It's going to be in closed session.
It'll be a closed session?
Yeah, there will be a closed session. Did you want me to make the announcement now? Okay, the closed session for the Camarillo Sanitary District, which will be later this evening, is a conference with labor negotiators. The authority is Government Code Section 54957.6a, and the agency designated representatives are listed in the agenda.
Okay, that gets us down. Any comments from the staff?
I don't have any. Tom, do you have any?
Comments from any board members on this? Okay, with that, we are going to recess to a study session, which is the capital improvement project review. So with that, we are in recess.
We're going to call the Camarillo Successor Agency to order. Let the record show that all members are present. Are there any amendments to this agenda?
There are no amendments.
Are there any public comments of items that are not on this agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second the motion.
Moved in second, we approve the consent calendar. Please vote. That motion carries 5-0. There's no other, any comments from the staff?
I don't have any. Ronnie, do you have anything? Okay. He doesn't.
Okay. Any comments from the board members?
Your Honor.
Yes.
I think that we have a lot of people here tonight who maybe don't have any idea what a successor agency is. And this is an agency that we were required to set up after the state stopped our redevelopment. And we're acting in the capacity of the successor agency to make decisions regarding the properties and things that we had and the money that had to do with redevelopment.
Thank you, Councilmember. If there's no other comments, we'll stand adjourned. We'll call the meeting of the Camarillo City Council to order. Let the record show that all members are present. There's no presentations. Consent calendar.
Actually, before we go there, I do have 2 amendments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Go, please, to page 3 of your agenda. If you go down about halfway, you'll see community development. It says temporary use permit, TUP status update. I'd like to remove that from the agenda.
Could I
And
ask,
we have notified the parties involved that we have removed this.
could I ask a reason why, Mr. City Manager?
There's more information that came in on this item, and we wanted to go through that at a staff level before we put it before the council, so we would make a better recommendation to you.
Okay, thank you.
And
Anything
then,
else?
yeah, the other item under city attorney, this is the resolution terminating the emergency proclamation, Camarillo Springs debris flow. If you read the recommendation, it'll say staff. It says staff will provide an update on the status of the Camarillo Springs debris flow and recommends terminating the proclamation of local emergency. The amendment would be to change the word terminating to extending the proclamation of local emergency. There may be a more appropriate word than extending, and when we get to this item, the city attorney may have a different word that he might want to use in that area.
So,
And just to take the reason why is we just recently this week we've come across potentially some additional funding that might be able to help with some of the mitigation measures and safety measures, and having the proclamation in place would potentially help that funding potential to be realized.
okay.
So
So we will leave it on the agenda, but we'll,
leave it on the agenda and change that one word because it is on the agenda, and I wanted to amend the agenda.
all right.
And that extending would also go into the motion.
Yes, that is the motion, I believe.
Okay, we'll leave that on the.
Yes, it's in both places. Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now we go to the consent calendar. Yes,
I do have an item on the consent calendar.
sure.
On the consent calendar that I'd like pulled, and that is item M.
M?
N or M?
M as in Mary.
How about mayor?
Okay,
That's the
I'll do Mayor if you
Recycled
want.
Water Improvement Sports Park?
Yes.
Okay, we will,
And then as you go through there, I have one question on the consent calendar. It doesn't need to be pulled, and then I need to make a comment on one. So just, I guess I'm saying, go slowly when you go to vote on the consent calendar.
we'll put the item that's been pulled off the consent calendar, we'll put that under Public Works. And then you might want to ask your question now about,
So are you at the consent calendar? or you-
we're at the consent
I
calendar.
thought we were under amendments to the agenda.
Well,
No, he moved to the consent calendar, and then
yeah,
she
Oh,
raised her hand. I started making.
okay. Sorry.
Okay, so you're there? One comment I need to make, and that is on item I. I need to abstain from that one. I personally do not have any financial, would not have any financial benefit from this or any financial ties, but Mars Farms is a client of the firm that which I work for, so just to make sure no one has any, any illusion that there might be something, I'll
your
abstain from that.
abstention will be noted in the minutes. Any,
And then my one question?
yes,
And I found this one it was going through the special event permit having to do with the fiesta. And my question has to do with the water that is used to fill up all the barricades.
all the what?
The water.
Oh.
So that I assume is the Community Development Department. Do we reuse that water? Do we lose it? And can you,
Yes.
Public Works.
okay, Public Works.
No, we have not, in the past, reused the water. The water is, once it touches the barricade, it's considered to be contaminated where it can't be reused for any public benefit that could come in contact with people, even though it's probably perfectly safe water. So we have to basically let it run down the storm drain.
How
Can't
many
be used
gallons
for
does that
irrigation?
take?
I'm sorry, I heard two questions. Go ahead.
Oh, my other question was, how many gallons does it take, and can we do something else? I'll do questions that doesn't waste the water.
Okay, and I believe that was Councilmember Craven's question as well. We can look into the difficulty is the hole. It's a reservoir with a very small hole, and to try and figure out a way to pump that water out and the time it would take to do that we are also trying to balance that with safety. Is once we start taking the water out, we're working in the street, and we want to minimize the amount of exposure that our people are working in the street. It could take hours to not let the water evacuate through the hole at the bottom, but try and pump it out to be able to then put it into a water truck and reuse it for irrigation. But we can look into the logistics of doing that, and if it makes sense without exposing the workers to too much time in the street, we can consider that.
Do you happen to know how many gallons one of those?
I don't.
And I guess my follow-up question would be, is there something else, particularly this year, we could use in its place so we don't have to use the water?
The only other type of barricade would be a K-rail, which we'd have to bring in a truck with a crane, and we could look at that as well. It'd be a lot more expensive, though.
But water is gold.
There's another thing, too, we might look at, and I thought the same thing. Instead of the water, those things with the water in them, if you had those barricades that you normally have block streets, what's going to be, when the truck comes down, or people come down toward our event, down that street, what's going to be right in front of them is a Wells Fargo stage. And there won't be any people right there. If it go through, it's going to hit the stage. And so it might be, in fact, that might be another barrier. But I think that would be, we could use those, what do you call it, street barricades there with signs on them, showing an arrow that direction, and would not have to worry about all the water.
Well,
And Your Honor, I bring this up only because of its unique, this year with the drought and so forth. So maybe we can just ask staff if they can look at different ways to.
One of the other things we could look into is perhaps, and again, we'd have to look to see what the rules are, but we have recycled water we're producing now that we might be able to use instead of potable water.
Okay, that was my only question on that one.
okay. Okay, we do have a consent calendar with all the items except item M.
Did you say there was a motion?
I made a motion to begin.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0.
With Mrs. McDonald abstaining from. Aye.
That's
Thank you.
noted. All right, moving down, there's no items from the City Council or Finance. Public Works has item M.
And would you like me to the main question I had was I just wanted to make sure I understood whose property it was we were improving and who would own the improvements.
There's some of the improvements would be reclaimed water lines that we would own, and this is to extend reclaimed water, recycled water to the sports park. And then there are some improvements that the sports park would own as far as the pumps that they would maintain as part of their irrigation system.
So if we're going to improve these, I noticed there was changing out some heads and so forth. We'll do the one time, then after that it becomes their responsibility to
Correct. Correct. We're in essence moving, they're pumping from one location to a new location. So they had put in the original infrastructure when they were using potable water. We're now shifting the infrastructure, but then they would resume control of that.
Okay. And the payment for this is coming out of our general fund versus their general fund?
It's our new recycled water fund, and so the idea is over time as we collect the rates for the recycled water, there's a portion of that to pay back the capital costs.
Perfect. So basically they'll end up paying for it in the end.
Correct.
That's all I had.
I'm going to pull a Charlotte because I think people need to know what we're talking about. The village at the park, all the 55 acres of athletic fields out there and the landscaping within the park, that was gray lined when they first built it. Now we are taking some of our tertiary treated water from the sanitary plant and pumping it down there at half the cost they're paying now for water. So that'll benefit them from our reused water.
Okay.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll move item M on the consent calendar.
Second.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, please vote. That motion carries 5-0. We'll see we've removed item A, 7A. And we go down to city attorney, resolution terminating the emergency proclamation, and the city manager has asked that that wording be changed from terminating to extending. And this would be for 30 days. Is that what I understand?
Yes, it will, and I believe that we will need to be back before you probably before the 30 days, and I'm not sure which meeting that would be in June. When is our first meeting in June? Do we have that date?
4th? Is this budget session?
I think it's June 10th.
June 10th is the
First
regular.
regular meeting, June 10th, so we may need to revisit this on June, well, we will need to revisit one way or the other on June 10th, but for tonight's purposes, yes, as Mr. Feng indicated, the recommendation will be, instead of terminating the proclamation, to extend the proclamation. We have provided forms in the past for that resolution, and as a matter of fact, the council has voted to extend this resolution a number of times. The resolution was initially, proclamation was initially made on November 1 of 2014 by Mr. Feng, and then the council on November 5th of 2014 confirmed the local emergency, and then voted to extend it again on December 3rd, on December 18th, on January 14th, February 11th, March 11th, April 8th, and April 22nd. The reason why this it returns to you during these increments is that Government Code Section 630 provides that the City Council is to review the need for continuing the local emergency at least once every 30 days until the City Council terminates the local emergency. So the decision for you tonight is whether to extend or terminate the proclamation. The recommendation is to extend the proclamation. I believe you heard comments from Mr. Feng earlier about the reason for that in terms of some potential additional funding. With regard to the other portion of the agenda, which indicates there will be an update on the Camarillo Springs debris flow matter, I know that the city staff is continuing to work with the residents with respect to the building permit issue, and I don't know if Mr. Fox or Mr. Feng have any additional comments they want to make. No? Okay. So that's what we have. In terms of the staff report, I can respond to questions, and then since this is an agenda item, if there are members of the public that may want to be heard on it.
There are several cards here that from people who do wish to be heard. Any other comments from the City Council before we hear the comments? If not, we'll call the people up. This is on the extension of the Camarillo emergency proclamation. Barbara Williams.
Barbara Williams. Ted Elliott is recuperating from surgery and asked me to pass this along. Dan Affman, the district conservationist from NRCS, has been back out and is trying to get additional work done in our community. She wants the city to extend the emergency declaration. I now speak to you as just one of the 259 homeowners in the Springs and one of the 932 homeowners in Camarillo Springs itself. I strongly support you extending the emergency declaration. The reason that was initially given in the report was that the rainy season was over. And I wanted to point out that we had measurable rain last week, and they're forecasting measurable rain and possibly rain that can meet our evacuation thresholds this week. And second, the emergency is not over for the 12 residents who cannot get permits to repair or rebuild their homes. Last City Council meeting, I gave you multiple reasons to extend the emergency proclamation, and none of those have changed. So we'll be recommending in the June meeting that you extend it for another 30 days. Multiple homeowners and multiple HOAs in the Camarillo Springs are still dealing with their insurance company issues. Our community is also in negotiation with Caltrans regarding drainage and debris flow issues. Last City Council meeting, you voted unanimously I quote, "To confirm the city-sponsored NRCS project is completed at Camarillo Springs, and any further work will be the responsibility of the HOA," end quote. Further work is not the responsibility of the HOA. It is the City of Camarillo's responsibility to enforce Camarillo Municipal Code 9.12.020 and require the property owners south of the Springs HOA to abate the declared public nuisance because it says, and this comes from that municipal code, I quote, "Topography which, whether in natural state or as a result of erosion or gradient operations, causes or are likely to cause erosion, subsidence, or surface water runoff, which will or may be injurious to persons and or to adjacent public or private properties." While the city has done a lot for our community, the city's recent actions, such as to vote to complete the project and to say that it's our responsibility for further work, and you changed it so there's no potential vote to terminate the declaration. It's overshadowing a lot of the good work you've done for our community. And this recent attitude reminds me of W.C. Fields' quote, "Go away, kid, you bother me." My friends and neighbors in Camarillo Springs, we're not going away. We expect you to extend the emergency declaration and are happy that you are doing so. And we expect you to enforce your own code and hold our adjacent property owners responsible for further work on Canal Mountain. Thank you. Barbara Williams, 37-year resident of Camarillo.
Thank you. Any questions of Ms. Williams? Okay. Mr. Phil Eads. Please identify yourself for the record, please.
Phil Eads, 6416 San Como Lane. Mr. Mayor, council, staff, I appreciate the time to address you today. I had a much more lengthy pitch here, but since the recommendation is to extend the emergency declaration, I'll limit my comments there to the fact that we do have continued risk. We have two separate geological studies that have been conducted over the past several months since the December event, and the conclusion there, at least from our specific location at 6416 and our neighbors Zielinski's and Ted Elliott, we still have a lot of risk there. We have the new erosion zone that was identified through those studies, and the only thing that's really been done, and we appreciate this, although it's a temporary solution, is the fact that we have K-rails up above that have been less than effective through the December event. We had significant damage after that, even though the K-rails were there. So if we get another inch in an hour, we will have the same problem again. We just spent significant money to get, 250 yards of debris out of our yard and house and so forth. We are interested in moving forward with the repair, and that takes me to my second point regarding the building permit process. We have been discussing that with the city. We have, with the city staff rather, they have required us to sign a release form that is really seemingly unfair and requires us to really give up significant property rights, significant future property value, and it seems onerous and just point blank unfair. And I would respectfully request that the city council, city staff, please review that, and I request that something be done to that effect. Thank you. Any questions? I have 30 seconds left.
Is there any questions of Mr. Eads? None? Thank you, Mr. Eads.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
The next one is Rob Castilla. Or Kester, excuse me. It's Kester. Yeah. Please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you. Ron Kester, 6329 Gatana Avenue in Camarillo Springs. First of all, I had a thank you very much for changing and amending the recommendation. I have to admit I had an unbelievably eloquent and persuasive argument that I will not burden you with now. But I will take the time I was going to spend on that and thank the City Council, thank staff, the City Manager, and everyone within the city for the hard work and diligence that you have given on our behalf on helping mitigate and clear debris. We're right there at the mountainside, and we talked to multiple city engineers who were there in the middle of the night, who were there right in the mud with us, working with some of the federal agencies and on our behalf. And thank you very, very much for that. We do appreciate it very much. And some of our insistence, I just want to make sure that you understand that we don't not appreciate what you've done. We do very much. And it makes us proud to be citizens of Camarillo. Okay.
Thank you.
I may be one of the younger people out at in Camarillo Springs, but I have lived in Camarillo since 1957 when my father was stationed here at Oxnard Air Force Base. So I have a long history with Camarillo and love this area very much. Secondly, regarding the permit or the release for the permit, I too just support what has been said before. And I think it's fairly onerous to try to require that. It's not a case of do we not want to sign it. Of course we don't want to sign it, but it's a case we can't sign it. If we were to sign that, it could potentially put at risk our insurance claims because it takes away from the insurance company the right of subrogation, which is an element in any insurance policy that you have. It can prevent us from getting new insurance because of that same. And it can make it very difficult to sell if we had to sell it because it now puts a covenant on the property that has to be attached to whoever the new owner may be. So it's a major property right that would be taken from us really without just compensation. And in order to take a right, there has to be just compensation, or it violates a constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment. And the Supreme Court has held that matter of fact on several cases that the Pacific Legal Foundation has taken regarding property rights before the Supreme Court. And now, I'm not an attorney. I just read well. Okay. So I appreciate, again, your efforts. And I ask that you please continue to work with us in helping to resolve this issue. Thank you very much.
Question, just one. Yes. You say you're here since 1957 when the base was based. I was here too when the base was based. Did you stay here?
Pardon? Well, we got transferred to Germany and then we came back in 1967 when I graduated from Camarillo High School.
Okay, because I came 62. That's what I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kessler. Gail Hunt. Please identify yourself for the record, Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, my name is Gail Hunt. I'm a registered geologist and certified engineering geologist in the state of California. And my specific concern is towards the damage that we experienced in the CCV, the Country Club Village, the mobile home portion of the park. We had two major flows that came out, one in an existing canyon that was not affected by the quarry. In this canyon, it did a lot of damage, but it has been mostly taken care of, or it has been taken care of, and we can take corrective actions on the property, on our own property. So this is not a serious problem for us. The other one is in the quarry area, and above our RV area for the Country Club Village, there was constructed a berm that I believe drained water to the east and toward an existing drainage system. Over the years, that drainage has been blocked by mud flows and debris flows, so that what was once an existing drain to the east, is now causing the flow to go toward the west. When it does that, it flows into the RV area. So my specific concern is expediting the corrective action that needs to be taken above the RV area. If the emergency action would help us get that done in real time. I would really appreciate and promote the fact that appreciate that we could continue that action. So I think that's probably all I have to say.
Any questions of Mr. Hunt?
Mr. Hunt, we can't take any action tonight because it's not on the agenda, but it's been listened to, and so may come back.
Okay.
Thank you. And the last one is Mr. Frank Zelensky. Please identify yourself for the record, please.
My name is Frank Zielinski, and my resident is 6404 San Como Lane. And my concerns are very similar to Mr. Eads, okay, who's at 6416 San Como Lane. And I'm directly just to his left facing the house. And I'm concerned about my house was damaged primarily in the December 11-12 debris flow because of a misplaced K-rail which ended at my property line, and it should have been extended past that. Otherwise my house wouldn't have been damaged at all. It stopped right at the property line, and during that storm the debris flow came around the K-rail and filled up 7 feet of mud and rock in my backyard. And I have a trench that's about 6.5, 8 feet wide and 5 feet deep on my hill, which is approximately 55 feet up to the little drainage ditch and so on and so forth. I'm concerned mainly of the placement of the K-rails at this time. And fortunately, I did one of my bucket lists. My wife and we flew over the hill with a helicopter on my birthday yesterday. And I got a better picture of which way the water's going to run. And I'm concerned about getting my permit until we have more rain to see just what's going to happen. But I would like to have that permit available, and anytime you can issue it, I don't know whether I'd start rebuilding that until we get another amount of rain. So please take that into account, and please place the K-rails all the way across to Gatana so that we do not have any more debris flow on San Como Lane. Thank you very much.
Is there any questions of Mr. Zielinski?
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
This K-rail, is it still in place where?
No, now they extended a few more that run to Elliott's property, which is the corner house in San Como and Gatana. But they still haven't done enough. I think they should put the K-rails above that little drainage ditch so that it will drain at more of a V shape to the right and to the left. And that's it.
The other question I have is your one of the houses that are eligible to be being given a permit now, or is yours ready?
Well, everything in my house has been cleared because of the mud that came into the house up 4 feet up on the walls. And if I got a permit today or next week, I would still wait until we had a rain. I'm permanently settled thanks to my insurance.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. We do have one more card. Henry Needham. Please identify yourself for the record, Mr. Needham.
I'm Henry Needham, 6446 San Como Lane. This is not my first appearance here, but I'm not here that often.
I think we all remember you. You were the first person to show up as a result of that.
I have several complaints. I met with members of the city council. They were telling me what I had to do, or supposedly had to do, in order to get a building permit. And between 3 elephants and 4 gorillas, I do not truly desire to rebuild. However, with the $1.2 or $5 million that was spent on mitigating with catch basins and such above my property, you are allowing neighbors to go back in who had less damage than I did. There are 5 homes that are not being able to get a building permit because of the requirements that have been placed upon us. We will have to have our own surveillance of the property above and mitigate the hazards to our property on our own little parcel of land individually in order to get a building permit from this city. That is an unfair, that is an unjust situation. That is a inverse condemnation of my property. You put specific things on 5 individuals, 5 residences, and then you are requiring individuals to sign a waiver of their rights to come against the city in order to get a building permit. I do not think that is proper. I do not think that it is legal. And I am stating such right here and now. If Mr. Perrick, the city attorney, feels otherwise, he may get challenged on it. If I came into Greg in order to get a building permit, I came into his office on the 23rd. I had a meeting with the city on the 23rd. They told me what I needed. I called Greg Robinson on the 24th and requested him to put together a list of the specific needs for me to get a permit to rebuild on my property. And he said, I'll try to get something together next week. And I said, how about Tuesday? He says, after 2 o'clock. Well, after 2 o'clock, I showed up, and Mr. Robinson did not come out to talk to me. His young lady, Renee, came out and spoke to me instead, and then she went back to see Mr. Robinson. Mr. Robinson never came out. She spoke to another individual from someone, Mr. Fox, who was at the meeting on the 23rd, and he did not come out to talk to me. I was absolutely ignored by those individuals, Mr. Little. And this is no way to treat people that have been hazardously evicted from their homes. And in order to get restoration profits, you have to sign away all rights and everything else. And that is a condemnation on the city of Camarillo, in my mind and in my situation.
Okay. Well, Mr. Needham, you've exceeded your time here, and we've heard you, and we thank you, and these items will be taken up.
I thank you very much, sir. I have a lot more to say.
Okay. All right. That's anyone else that wishes to be heard? Not? We'll go back to the City Council.
Your Honor, I would move to extend the proclamation of local emergency.
Second.
Your Honor, I have one question, if I might,
Yes.
before we vote. Can someone clarify what action we took at the last meeting or the meeting before? And the way I recall it is when we took action to declare the project completed. Project may not be the right word, but it was that specific project versus the whole, that everything was done. We were addressing what we had been funded for. We needed to do it to show a completion in order to complete that work order. I'm going to call it a work order, so to speak. In other words, we had a project, we were approved to do it, we had funding for it, and that specific project was what we were declaring completed. Am I kind of saying it in layman's terms here?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it was just addressing that specific project that we had been funded to do.
Correct, and the funding came primarily from the NRCS, and there was a scope of work within the NRCS agreement, and we completed that work.
That's a good way of putting that. Scope of work was what was completed.
Right.
Okay. I just think that's important so that people understand what it was we took action on.
We did at that time also then proceed to extend the project. Okay, there we have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have one other question, maybe Brian or Bruce, and just as kind of a layman here. Can you maybe explain to me the insurance situation here as far as how that works? In other words, we all buy insurance here, and maybe I need to be educated, but maybe if there's a couple of things you might be able to educate me on as far as the insurance situation with a homeowner out there.
Well, I think what I can say at this point would be that we will review the insurance issues that have been raised.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0 to extend the proclamation for 30 days. And these other issues will be taken up as proceeds. No items, city manager, clerk, or administrative services. We go to the closed sessions. Mr. City Attorney, would you like to read the closed sessions?
Yeah, our closed sessions are conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, paragraph 4, subdivision D. Number of cases is 3. The second item is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Number of cases is 2. And the final one is a conference with labor negotiators under Government Code Section 54957.6A, and the agency representatives are listed in the agenda.
All right. I've been asked that we recess the meeting at this point in time and hold the oral communications and information items till we get back at 7:30. So unless there's any objection, we'll stand recessed. And we'll have a study session on the capital improvement program. And the closed sessions, obviously, yeah. I'm going to call this session of the City Council back to order. And we have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Craven?
Here.
Councilmember Kildee?
Here.
Councilmember McDonald?
Here.
Vice Mayor Morgan? Here. Mayor Little?
Here. Mr. Morgan, would you give us a flag salute, please?
Could everyone please stand, face the flag? Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I think we have some presentations tonight. First is the Economic Development Committee of Ventura County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. Is someone here to give that report? Oh, Bruce.
Indeed I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give you a name.
Good
for the
evening,
record,
Mr. Mayor, members of the council and staff. Bruce Stensley, the Economic Development Collaborative of Ventura County. Hopefully distributed to each of you is a fancy little colorful folder. It looks like this, and within it on the right side, you'll see a sort of brown covered report that I'm going to run through very briefly, and the PowerPoint that I'll cover is, I think, on the left. What this document is, very briefly, is it's called a Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. That's sort of a highfalutin term. In this case, what it really is a document that is prescribed by the U.S. Department of Commerce as a condition of applying or receiving certain grants from the Department of Commerce. That said, it's looking at a variety of features of the Ventura County economy. We've assembled this and primarily organized it around a so-called SWOT analysis as prescribed. So what I'm going to do is go through very briefly with you, I hope, some of the strengths, weaknesses, a couple of the opportunities and threats that we think face Ventura County as an economic region generally and the city of Camarillo a little bit in particular. And a lot of this, an apology in advance, is going to be very much data-driven, and we're going to look at a couple of tables in a little detail. So that noted, looking at the strengths, I'm going to spend just very little time on this, but I think you know as well as I do what they are. Ventura County and the city of Camarillo in particular are very strong in the manufacturing sector, by which we mean not just the production of goods, but the entire chain and research and development and logistics and strategy that goes into the business of manufacturing. We have Power One, Vitesse, Semtech, a number of those firms here in Camarillo. I'll go into that a little bit more in detail. The defense, that is the sort of naval-based Ventura County and extended family, is a huge piece of our regional economy, generates close to 28,000 jobs, direct and indirect, and we could go into that in more detail. Agriculture, as we know. The export global trade piece is a huge chunk of the Ventura County economy, partly driven by those firms that are in the aerospace and defense and manufacturing network. But a data point for your cocktail parties in another hour would be Ventura County ranks generally about 15th of the largest 100 urban areas in the nation for the share of local GDP that is generated by export trade. That is, we are extremely dependent as the income and economic generation from Ventura County relative to the rest of the country that is export trade dependent. That's a very cool feature. Finance and insurance is a huge piece, a little bit less in the city of Camarillo than it is in the full county. But let's move on to a table that's a little bit tricky. So the jobs is the sort of purplish bar. That is the jobs in each of these sectors by county. These are payroll jobs. Somebody's got them on their payroll, jobs based in Ventura County. Near the middle, the one that's called FIRE is an acronym actually for finance, insurance, and real estate. But look at about 3/4 of the way down manufacturing. The yellow bar is the economic output, the share of the $80 billion economy that is Ventura County that is generated by manufacturing is actually about 26%. Say that again, 26% of the Ventura County economy is tied to the manufacturing sector. It's a huge piece. So what we try to do by a table like this and looking at each of these things is identify where our strengths are, which of these pieces of the economy do we want to make sure that we're hanging on to by one strategy or another and retaining and growing and maybe attracting new business, and which of them maybe needs some attention to remediate. So another table, this is a little tricky, the relative share of jobs by industry sector. So what these percentages are, so let's just look at the top line, construction. In Ventura County as a whole, we have roughly 300,000 payroll jobs in the county, and around 4%, 3.98% of those are in the construction sector. And in Camarillo, it's about 3%. So we're a little under in Camarillo the average number of jobs for the region that are in that sector. But look at manufacturing. Ventura County's share of jobs is 11%, significantly higher than the statewide average, but look at Camarillo on the far right-hand side. 20% of the jobs based in the city of Camarillo are in the manufacturing sector. That tells you a lot about the city alone. Those jobs in Ventura County, if you include all of them, such as Amgen down in Thousand Oaks, average about $94,000 per job versus the average job in Ventura County paying about $50,000. So the degree to which a community has an economy based in the manufacturing sector means it's generating significant incomes for its workers, et cetera. You're a little low relative to the rest of the region in finance and insurance, but that isn't so much that you have fewer of those jobs, but because we're carving this up as a pie, given you have concentration in manufacturing, it's going to come out of somewhere else. Healthcare is a little lower here than in some of the other regions of Ventura County, but barely. And you can see, but the professional, scientific, and technical services there, that's actually not a very big sector, but again, similar to manufacturing. We compare this to California, to LA, to Santa Barbara, just to get an idea of where we stand in the density of these different sectors by job compared to others. And again, we realize that Camarillo and the county in general have an extremely powerful advantage in the manufacturing sector. Moving on through the SWOT analysis, very briefly on the weaknesses. We think these are fairly self-evident. One of the issues in California, and coastal California in particular, is a lack of affordable housing. Not an easy thing for anyone to manage, but we know it's there. The construction sector is lagging horribly in Ventura County. We used to have 21,000 jobs in construction, when the recession, or the year before the recession started. We lost 10,000 of those 21. We've only got 3,000 of them back. Ventura County is one of the few counties in California that has not recovered its jobs since the start of the recession. We're still down about 6,000 jobs. We're down 6,000 jobs in construction. We've basically recovered on net, pluses and minuses in other sectors, but were it for construction. That said, Camarillo is doing its fair share with construction of apartments and other housing on the western side of the city, and we see a lot of good activity there. Those are good jobs, and we worry there aren't as many of them, and it's difficult to reestablish those. And obviously a shortage of industrial land supply. And a point that I'd like to dwell on is transportation. And we conclude transportation infrastructure, but give me just a moment to walk through a couple of data points here, and I'll get out of your way after this and maybe one more chart. If you look at the 10-city average, and this is sort of a funky way to look at it, the average of the 10 cities in Ventura County is that we have about 23,000 jobs. Again, Camarillo is pretty close to that middle, and we'll show that in a moment. But only 22% of any city's residents, on average, actually live or work in the city they live in. It's a little lower in Camarillo, and I'll show you that table in a moment. 50% of Ventura County's payroll labor force finds its employment, or 49% rather, outside the county, compared to Orange, LA, and Santa Barbara, which maintain a home base for a much higher percent of their residents. Some of this is benign. The fact is that Ventura County's economy grew up next to Los Angeles. The quality of life in Ventura County says let's live here and work there if we can. The other way to look at that, of course, is we have a shortage of jobs relative to the population, and I'll pound on that in a moment. Looking at Camarillo specifically, if you don't mind starting at the right-hand side of this overly dense chart, this would fail all of the tests for how much information you can put into a table. On the top right, the in-area labor force. So what this tells us, living in the city, of the roughly 60,000 residents of Ventura County, about 24,500 of them, or 24,000, are on somebody's payroll jobs. Not necessarily in the city, but they're in the labor force on somebody's payroll. Living and employed in the city is only 4,666, or 19% of them, and 19,000 of your residents are commuting outside the city every day. The table below it tells the story a little bit differently. You have almost 28,000 jobs in the city, meaning you've got more people commuting into the city than you have commuting out. But in every given day, you've got 23,000 people living outside your city, moving into the city to take a job. 4,600 of them wake up here, go to work here, and 19,000 of them wake up here and move somewhere else. What do we conclude from this? This happens all over Ventura County in each of our 10 cities. One of the virtues of Ventura County and land use policy is 10 reasonably tightly knit urban centers with both jobs and population. We manage open space extremely effectively, but we've also then decentralized our population and job centers. So we've got thousands and thousands of people traveling back and forth throughout the county because they're not living and working. We're not suggesting that they all should find a job where they live. That would be very cool. We do think that it means we should be spending time thinking about what is the transportation infrastructure in Ventura County today and in the future that accommodates that kind of rapid or endemic movement. Opportunities, I'm going to skip this in the interest of time. There's any number of these that we could focus on, but I hate to do this. I'm going to focus on the negative for a moment and leave you with that, and then a couple of points about moving forward. It's this fundamental lack of jobs, and I'm going to do this in a table, and I'm going to try and do this and then leave you alone, or I'd be happy to answer any questions. If you look at the top line there, the Ventura County line, there are 840-some thousand people roughly in Ventura County. We have about 323,000 payroll jobs in Ventura County. So you look at those as a percentage, it's about 38%. You look at Orange County, 46, LA, 42, Santa Barbara, 46. Each of those has a significantly higher share of jobs per population. Moving to the right two, and I'll take a question now and then I'll hit that one.
Okay, before you switch this thing.
Sure.
How are you counting? We have a large population of retired people in Camarillo. How are you accommodating, because you're using the whole total number for the county, yet how do you accommodate those that are retired here? Because there's a lot.
I understand that. We're trying to compare apples to apples here, meaning the same data points that we're using for Ventura County, Orange County, LA, et cetera. If you isolate it to Camarillo, I agree it would be a distorting data point.
That's exactly.
But we're using just the county on this one and not trying to drill down by city, because for the very reason that you identify. But if we take the aggregate of the 800,000 population in Ventura County, looking at the right two columns there, this is where we think we have a very disturbing set of data. There are about 438,000 people in the Ventura County labor force, about 410,000 of them employed, about 28,000 any given day looking for jobs. We only have one job in Ventura County, or let me rephrase that. We have fewer jobs in Ventura County than we do. We have about 75 jobs for every 100 workers is the way to look at this. So what we have is, by structure, the requirement that for the Ventura County labor force to find jobs, on net, 25%, 27 almost, 26% of our population needs to leave the county to find employment. If you compare that to other regions, they're doing a far better job of creating a better ratio of jobs to population. Orange County, 92, LA, 85, even Santa Barbara, 87. Again, we think some of this is benign. That is, by virtue of a community that has grown up adjacent to Los Angeles with opportunities to live in quality of life that we have here and find economic opportunity there. That said, over time, we believe that there's a huge amount of attention that needs to be paid on creating more jobs as the population grows, or this ratio is going to go in the wrong direction, and it has been going in the wrong direction for several years, actually for about 20 years. So we don't want to change the land use equation of Ventura County. We don't want to change the quality of life of Ventura County, but we do want to be attentive to the degree that we are creating jobs that do accommodate the skills and opportunities for our resident. And our summary of priorities and goals are a little bit, for the purpose of this document, a little bit about avoiding evil and doing good, but a little bit more detail around our role as an economic development organization and fostering and facilitating collaboration, identifying the key industries, as I started, that create the best jobs and the most opportunity. We think the number one idea for improving the Ventura County economy is not exactly original, but that is investing in the quality of education and the workforce pipeline, because businesses will come and hire where they find talent. That is the competitive advantage in a 21st century economy. That said, we are worried about infrastructure, whether it be water, of course, whether it be broadband, so we have the communication technology that allows businesses to be here and work globally, but of course transportation. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this. I would imagine I've gone over my time.
Any questions?
Yes. Yeah, Bruce, you talked a little bit about, and I've been, we've all been dealing with this for a long, long time here, but the high office vacancy rate, do you see that, changing in the future years? I know, several years ago it was kind of the thing to have your own office, and it seemed like that kind of mushroomed, and then we've kind of been stuck here with all this capacity here for a number of years, notwithstanding the horrible recession we had even precipitated that. But do you see any movement on that?
Not really. I mean, the vacancy rates are going down. In industrial, they're incredibly low, but as you pointed out, in commercial, they remain very high. That said, Ventura County is not unique. I spent a lot of time talking to my peers across the state, and this is sort of an endemic problem. A longer answer, and I'll try to make this as short as I can. One of the basic pieces of data that all of the prior presentation I made ignores is the incredibly rising share of self-employed and home-based employment. I'm looking at payroll jobs here because this is the kind of data that you can actually track, because it's being reported through an employer, through payroll taxes and Social Security, et cetera. But what we know is we've probably got about 60,000 quote-unquote self-employed sole proprietors in Ventura County. That number is rising, and those folks don't want offices, and therein lies the rub.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right on that. Thank you.
Yes, Jan.
I have one question, and it's talk about the industrial property. We had just had a presentation, and it was there was the inference that we had too much, that we didn't need it. Now you're telling us that we need industrial.
Yeah, I'll be very
space.
careful here and try not to get shot by either the city manager or others, depending on what they've said. It is our position that over time that Ventura County has a shortage of available industrial zone property. That can vary dramatically by city, but if you were to work from the west to the east, City of Ventura is basically built out with the exception of one property along the 101 that could be zoned for industrial. Oxnard has one big chunk right off the 101 between Rice and Del Norte. They recently sort of master planned. Beyond that, it's pretty well called for. Thousand Oaks is pretty well built out. Moore Park has a few opportunities. Camarillo has a larger share of industrial zone property, I would hazard a guess, than any other city by share of acreage or other measures. But in general, and I don't want to be in the position of saying what your land use policy should be, but in general, as a county, we have a serious anxiety over the availability of industrial zone.
I appreciate that input. Thank you.
Any other questions? I've got one question. Of all those industrial type of jobs and everything that you had on one of your slides, is there any one that you would say we have a better chance at achieving the goals that you're talking about as opposed to some of the others?
We still think that the opportunity to retain and grow firms that are connected to the production economy or manufacturing is a huge opportunity for Ventura County. That is the infrastructure that we have. But people need to sort of accommodate themselves to the notion that this isn't so much the manufacturing of the product. We recognize that that tends to go to lower cost regions. But the design and management of the entire manufacturing value chain tends to be a high concentration still in Ventura County. And let me tell you why I think that. In 1980, Ventura County, compared to the rest of the nation, had a shortage of manufacturing jobs. Our ratio compared to the rest of the country is we only had about 3/4 of the jobs in Ventura County in manufacturing compared to other regions. But remember in 1980, I'm barely old enough to remember that. Just kidding. I'm well old enough to remember that. People today think 1980 is when we were in the heyday of manufacturing, 10 years before the aerospace bust. Everybody I talk to says manufacturing's gone away. We have a higher concentration today in manufacturing than we did in 1980. It has retained its base here. It has grown as a relative share of the economy compared to other regions. Manufacturing jobs and production tend to go away because they get automated, but the entire value chain around that has remained strong in Ventura County. That said, what total number of jobs could that be? But in the network of jobs that create the support network for that, we think there are huge opportunities still there.
Okay.
In 1980, the only two major manufacturing companies in Camarillo, guess what they were?
I will not hazard a guess.
Everson Jennings and 3M.
3M, sure. Should have guessed 3M.
Now look what's happened.
There are plenty of them. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. Any other questions of Bruce? Well, thank you so much, and I think I can speak on behalf of the council that we think your organization is doing a great job in nurturing new businesses and keep up the good work.
Thank you. I should have mentioned one last point, and I'll get out of your way. This report is on our website, edc-vc.com, and there's actually about an 80-page version of this, somewhat jokingly, as the executive summary. A little long for that, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay. We have another presentation tonight, St. John's Pleasant Valley Hospital Expansion Project.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, staff. Pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Darren Lee. I'm the hospital president and CEO of both the St. John's hospitals, and am just thrilled and excited to be able to share this with you. We, on behalf of Dignity Health and St. John's, we are excited about investing nearly $80 million in Camarillo to build a new patient addition and update the existing resources we have. I will tell you, one of the first things I noticed when I walked into the hospital, and I know many of you have been there as well, the patient rooms are very small. They're kind of pie-shaped, and it's hard to get guests in there to visit, and it's a little bit awkward to get the equipment in there sometimes. We're building 50 brand new patient rooms. They'll be about twice the square footage as the existing rooms, and I'll show you some pictures of it in a moment. We're also going to have 3 brand new state-of-the-art operating rooms. One will be a little bit larger to accommodate orthopedic equipment. We'll have a cath lab, a central sterile processing area, a brand new pharmacy, dining area and kitchen, as well as a brand new lobby and gift shop area. This is the layout. You see the existing structure in the yellow and the darker orange at the top right is where the new patient tower will be. That location was selected so we could maintain consistency and transition with existing services. The emergency department, the red dot up there at the top of the screen will remain where it is, and we have some other public entries there as well. That will stay. So in order to maximize patient flow, we located the new patient addition where it is. I also recall when I first drove to the hospital, I kept wondering where the front of it was, and I felt like I drove around to the back to get to the front of the hospital. So this will put it a little bit more closely where it naturally should be. The parking lot, we've been approved at 242 spaces, and at the request of the city, we've actually been able to increase that. So currently we have about 253 spaces, and we'll end up with about 265 by the time we're done. So we think parking issues will be addressed. This is, let me jump here quickly, blow this up a little bit to the zoom in. You can see where the kitchen and dining area is. We'll now have some deliveries at the front of the hospital here, so they won't have to drive all the way around. So we'll shorten the distance they have to travel. We'll also be limiting the times of certain deliveries to limit the impact on the community and neighbors. We've got, you see the surgery, the new surgery area will flow naturally right into where the emergency room is. The pharmacy is centrally located. And then you'll notice that our public entrance there in the dining area, which will be all brand new with our kitchen, will be nicely located so that in addition to serving the patients in the acute care hospital, it will also be able to serve visitors who are there to visit the residents in our subacute unit right across there. This is levels, what the basic patient floor area looks like. I'll call your attention to the 3 different colored dots. The yellow dots represent some rooms that are a little bit larger, flexible acuity, so we can get different equipment in there as needed. The orange dots represent bariatric patient rooms. Those rooms will have patient lifts built into the ceiling so that if we have a patient we need to move, we have the equipment built right into the room and can easily lift and move the patient from as needed. The third dot I'll draw your attention to is the light blue dot, and you'll see 3 of those around the perimeter of the floor. Those are the windows that will let natural, now all the patient rooms will have natural light, but these windows on the perimeter will allow natural light to flow into the hallways, into the nursing stations, so that our employees and visitors as they're walking through that area will benefit from the natural light. This is a great rendering of what it will look like. You know, about 7 or 8 months ago when I first drove through Camarillo, the new library really stood out to me. I thought, what an amazing building. And this hospital, after a lot of work from our architects, I think really complements that library and will be a great addition to the community. Here's a close-up. We spent a lot of time with the architects getting that entry done. And just to give you some context, the right where you see the trees on the slide, that's where we'll have some outdoor dining, and our cafeteria and kitchen area will be. Here is a look from the opposite side. Now, just outside the picture on the bottom left is where our subacute unit is, and that's if that gives you a little bit of context there. This is the view from Antonio. And here's a view of the hospital at night. Again, Antonio and Mar Vista. This is the inside. Curved surfaces, different textures, giving it a nice feel. This is a view looking into our outpatient surgery. Notice the hanging lights and some of the pendant lighting you'll see in one of these next slides here. A very warm environment with different colors and surfaces there as well to help with the transition to different areas within the hospital. This is the view looking down to the dining area. Notice we've got seating areas, places for people to congregate, giving the sense and feel a little bit of privacy as they need to have confidential conversations. Here's a family waiting area. Again, different areas for people to gather. Notice the different colors and transitions, the signage to the right of the elevator. This is the nurses' station. I want to call out three things here. One, the pendant lighting gives it a nice warm feeling. We've got natural lighting coming from the window in the middle left of the picture. And then notice the counter in the center, which is lower. So where we have a patient coming in who's in a wheelchair, they can come right up and not feel like they have to look up or lean down. Very accessible to the patient. Also, we have the equipment hanging on the walls, limiting the impact and so forth of wires. This is a patient room. For those of you who have been in one of the patient rooms already, you'll notice this significantly larger. Again, we've got a computer screen on the wall. The computer will be built in. One of the challenges we have now is moving the computer carts around the hospital and having to charge them at regular intervals. This will put the computer right in the room. The nurse has access to it and can actually face the patient as she's entering stuff into the computer, or asking questions and entering data into the computer. A nice couch that does recline, so that if anyone is staying longer term, they can be able to be comfortable and stay with the patient they're visiting. This is a picture of our catheterization lab, where we will perform diagnostic services as well as some interventional procedures. And there it is. Again, we are really excited about investing in the community, excited what this will do for our patients and visitors as well as our staff, and very much appreciate the city's support we've had along the way to get this far. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Any questions? Oh, yes, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for being here. A couple of questions. Are you going to use any solar energy or solar panels on this? Have you thought about that?
We are looking into that now. It is really complicated to put. OSHPD requirements are very challenging to put the solar equipment on the roof. So we're looking into what some of the schools have done, where they've got covered parking. So we're doing that assessment analysis now.
Good. And also, the drought-resistant plants and whatnot are going to be followed, obviously, with the new. I mean, it looks really nice that the landscaping here, but obviously you're more than willing to do as much drought-resistant shrubbery as you can.
Absolutely. In fact, not only are we willing, we're highly motivated to do so. Not just there's lots of benefits in terms of saving water and maintenance and so forth. And just for reference, we're doing that at both of our hospital campuses and have that project underway.
And then, have you decided what you're going to do with the older part of the hospital yet?
So there are some administrative offices there already. I'd hate to tear down my office, but at some point we've got a training facility, a conference center that will stay, and we'll use it for administrative things. At this point, what exactly we do with the other open space, we haven't gotten that far.
Okay, and then the fact that you're going to add, I believe, was it 80? How many rooms was this going to be?
So currently, we'll be eliminating 65 and adding 50 back in. So the total number of rooms will be reduced. We'll have those 50 patient rooms I mentioned, and that's in addition to the existing rooms in the emergency department and our ICU.
Okay, will you have new physicians that will become on board, or do you have enough to handle the load at this particular point?
We have a good number of physicians now. We are constantly seeking to increase our number of primary care physicians in the area, so that's an ongoing effort.
Ongoing effort, and that'll continue to go?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, just lastly, what do you foresee with the insurance type thing and the care and all the medical plans on the county? Is there anything on the docket here with the new Obamacare and whatnot that you're dealing with, of course, it's going to change what you're doing now?
You know, we are moving more and more what we're seeing with technology and the way that the insurance has changed. We're seeing a lot more outpatient procedures. We're focusing on keeping our length of stay reduced. At the end of the day, it's very interesting. We're seeing a change in the Medicare and Medicaid population, a little bit different populations that previously have not been part of that group are now part of that group because they're signing up for those programs. I think we're agile enough. The way this is set up is to the extent care changes over time, we're set up we have the ability to move with it. So,
and you'll have enough personnel to handle, the capacity issues in.
Yeah,
with this.
Yeah, we're well staffed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Yes, well, it's Mike and Jen.
Seems like you'd be tired now from serving lunches yesterday.
Yes, I was by. Hopefully, I don't still smell like smoke.
The hospital does what we do. They serve their employees lunch once a year. And the nurses yesterday, he was out there cooking and serving. But I was there to talk with George West, and he told me about all the solar things that you're doing around the campus on the parking lots. Yeah. We've got a pretty good chance of that happening in our hospital also. You got a large parking lot. Are you going to be moving toward upgrading this one also to be more power efficient?
Yeah, we're going to add some charging stations for electric vehicles, and we're doing the solar analysis now for both campuses.
Okay, good. Okay, just curious if you're going to come here too. Great. What you showed me and what George showed me before. You've done a great job for Camarillo in adding these things.
Thank you.
Jan?
My question is simple. Just the timeline. When do you expect to break ground, et cetera?
Well, breaking ground. We expect to have a groundbreaking ceremony in late September.
Wow.
And at that point, you'll actually see the equipment and so forth, and we'll begin to move dirt around a little bit. There'll be some activity prior to that, but I would say the official break ground is late September. I don't anticipate this going up quite as quickly as the high school. But
hope not.
we do expect to be fully operational by March of 2018.
Very good. Okay.
I got a couple of questions, Darren. First of all, I assume the reduction of 15 beds, you're okay with that because you mentioned this outpatient, more surgeries and so forth is outpatient.
We're seeing more outpatient procedures. And if we look at our census over the last year or so, even during the high times, we will still have a significant buffer if we need it. So remember, we have the 50 beds in the main patient tower, as well as the beds we have in our emergency department and in our ICU.
And then the other question I have is, you said it would be open in 2018. Do you have a cost estimate for this?
We estimate $77 million.
Okay. And I assume you're going to be conducting a fundraising campaign?
Significant fundraising. Dignity Health has committed to provide funding for $70 million, give or take, and we're expecting to raise $10 million plus from the community to assist with the building of the new addition.
Okay, fine. So all that will be forthcoming, I assume, in the next few months.
Yes, campaign kicks off, and we'll begin being very active in that area.
Okay. Well, it's a beautiful building, and we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for letting us see this, and we think it's going to be a great addition to the city of Camarillo.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item is public comments. We have several public comments. Chief Monica McGrath.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council, City staff. I'm here tonight to tell you about National Police Week, which is this week. And right now, as I speak, our sheriff, Chief Accessory Eugene Kosachenko's widow, Mora, their family, several of our deputies are in D.C. right now at the memorial as Eugene's name is being placed on that memorial in D.C. As such, next week, on Thursday, May 21st at 10 a.m., you're all invited to a ceremony. It's about 45 minutes long along at the Government Center in Ventura, where we have our Ventura County Memorial. And at that time, Eugene's name will be displayed, and there will be a ceremony, some speeches given. It's a very moving and touching moment for all the families there. So you are all invited, and it's a special time to honor those that gave the ultimate sacrifice. So please put that on our calendar if you can.
What part of the campus? What part of the center will you be?
It's on the west end at Thiel and Victoria, and it's a large memorial. In fact, it'll be easy to spot because fire trucks will be out there with 2 big ladders. We'll have the national anthem, we'll have the doves, we'll have the 21 gun salute, so a nice ceremony, about 45 minutes tops. But if you can go, it's quite moving and quite special.
And that's May 21st?
First, next Thursday at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay. Well,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, the next one is Matthew Lorimer.
Good evening, Council. Eugene officer was killed by a drunk driver who's 41 years old, 11-year veteran. I'm glad the Board of Supervisors, they're going to dedicate a section of the freeway for him. I think that's really great. Officers, constantly hearing things about officers. I think we need to have a day. You know, I went to that funeral, and officers said, the only time we get together when somebody loses their life. I think we should have a celebration at the airport. I think every city should hold a time of year to celebrate officers and firefighters. They do a great job for the community. The Rent Review Board. The Rent Review Board, for 30 years, you've said it works well. We went, I was a petitioner. The Rent Review Board found that the owner doesn't maintain the park. The managers didn't know anything about respect to the maintenance, and they issued basically a 1.7. The owner said he's not going to follow it. He's going to give us a 5%. There's a problem there. The city should get involved. It's unacceptable. Mr. Morgan has said in the past that nobody's ever not accepted a judgment by the Rent Review Board. It's a terrible thing, and we will be continuing to speak about that. I think it's a problem and should be addressed. I want to talk about the Camarillo Ranch. There's been a lot of talk about that. You guys are funded at $100,000. I think we need to have a little clear information, not from a retired president. I think we should just go over what's going on over there. I think it's important. Taxpayers are putting money into it. It should be discussed further and be made public. You know, I just watched the EDC VC here, and I got to tell you, they say that we're down in jobs. That's because the City Council twice raised user fees on business. It's time to promote some business owners instead of developers. You know, your city staff seems to be tied up with development all over. Maybe it's time we focus on business owners. User fees are too high. They're affecting businesses. Take a look at around town. You'll see Camarillo Bridal went out of business. Blockbuster's building's empty. I could go on and on and on. I think it's time for the City Council to spend a little time focusing on businesses. It's important. We don't want to have areas of the city that become dilapidated with scratched windows and dirt and trash and everything else. It's time to focus on promoting business owners and helping them. If we're doing it for developers, I think it's time to shift a little bit. Thank you very much for your time.
Matthew, you might want to stick around for the next item. We're going to be talking about business fees. So,
Also, Your Honor, also I want him to know we're the only city that holds a dinner for our police officers in appreciation of their activities. The commander can tell you that. We're the only city that does that. So thank you for telling us we should be doing that. We're doing it.
And I would simply point out that 2 members of this council sit in the monthly sessions of the board meetings with the Camarillo Ranch Board. And so we are very familiar with what's been going on, and between the 2 of us, we've been able to get some changes made. So,
and what you've heard and saw in the newspaper, you got a response from Bruce Furman, who's on the board, with exact facts. So don't always believe what you read in the newspaper or you'll be way behind. Those are exact facts. Somebody can attack you anytime they want and say anything they want. But let's look at the truth. And we did get that truth in Bruce Furman's letter.
Okay, we'll move on to the next card. We have Jeff Malgren. Want to state your name for the record, please?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeff Malgren. I'm a 25-year resident of the Camarillo Springs. I live directly next to the part of the springs that suffered the greatest damage in the 2 rain events of late 2014. And I want to take this time to commend the various departments of the city of Camarillo for their prompt emergency response to these events, including their on-site assistance. Following the events, the mitigation improvements made to the surrounding terrain as specified in the NRCS grant are encouraging, but lots of work remains to be done during the off-season. The recommendations made by the geotechnical engineers' analysis of the terrain following these rain events require a much more comprehensive solution to this ongoing hazard. The scope of this plan exceeds the measures already taken by the city and the affected Camarillo Springs homeowners associations. Enactment of such a plan needs direct involvement from the actual landowners, and that's, as far as I understand, it's primarily the Longo Trust. Since the city of Camarillo has declared the adjoining property a public nuisance, there is now an established duty to take steps to resolve that condition by compelling the joint landowners to make additional modifications to the terrain. Now, the 932 homeowners of the Camarillo Springs Homeowners Associations, and there's 5 of them, are aligned with the city to seek the necessary remedies toward preventing future severe damage likely to occur with heavy rain events. So I'm asking the council tonight to please take appropriate action to get the enforcement of this declaration moving forward. Long-term, the monetary savings to the city cannot be overemphasized when such disaster responses can be avoided. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions of Mr. Malgren? Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll move to the public hearings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first one is a resolution establishing a new user fee schedule. We're going to have a report.
Yes, I do have a report on that, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. There is a very detailed agenda report that explains the review process that we've gone through for what we call the annual user fee update. The item before you tonight is a suggested downward revision from our current existing user fee schedule. Through these next few slides, I'm going to just kind of reacquaint you with the fees that are assessed by user fees. We presently have schedules for the Community Development Department, Building and Safety, Public Works, Police, City Clerk, and Finance. This year we enlisted the help of the city's consultant to go through the process and recalibrate the fees as was recommended for this upcoming process. What's not included in the part of this is taxes, fines, development impact fees, or utility rates. Those are not user fees. Oftentimes they're used interchangeably, but they are not. They're 2 distinct things. The historical perspective, what we've done just recently at 11/12, we did a comprehensive update to our user fees, and this was something that had not been comprehensively done prior to that for about 10 years. So that did result in a rather significant implementation of that user fee in 11/12, and some of the fees had to be adjusted because they had not been brought current as far as the current cost of delivering that particular service. In 12/13, we enlisted the help of NBS once again to review a select number of fees, and we looked at some time estimates, modified them as appropriate, updated for our labor cost, and then adopted a revised user fee schedule as a part of the 2013 process. In 2014-15, per industry standards, we adjusted for our known labor cost. That then provided the current user fee structure that's in place for the 14-15 year. And then as a part of this process in preparation for the upcoming 15-16 year, we once again enlisted the help of our consultants, NBS, to review all of the fees. They added some additional fees as was appropriate. Those were in consultation with staff. And then they reviewed the labor cost and updated the overhead cost where appropriate. Just a side note again, the industry best practice for reviews of fees or service is annual increase, such as the labor costs, which we do, and then a comprehensive study every 3 to 5 years. We just wanted to note that because then this presents that we're back in cycle doing this comprehensive study on a periodic basis so as to keep the user fees current with the current cost of delivering that particular service. On this particular slide, it's a rather busy slide, but I'm going to call your attention to the few areas that are shaded. And what they're meant is to illustrate why we now have a downward revision in this current fiscal year. User fees are comprised of direct cost, and you see those listed for the 2013 and 2015 year. You'll note that there is a decrease in direct cost going into the 15 year. On the indirect cost, there's a slight increase, 53,251 to 54,200. Those two components then provide what is known as the division cost for a particular user fee. I'll pause there to say that while this is an illustration for the city clerk's division, all of the time estimates and the costs that are shown in this particular fee may not be exclusive just to the city clerk. By that I mean if this requires the collaboration of several departments, but the city clerk is responsible for administering the fee, collectively all of those would be gathered and shown under the city clerk division. The productive hours then represents the estimated staff time that is available throughout a fiscal year, and this again is just a combination of the hours that are provided under this particular division. When you then take the division cost divided by the productive hours, that gives you the factor that we see in this middle line, 114.50 versus 101 for 2015. How then a user fee is arrived at is you take that factor and then you times it by the average labor hours to administer that particular fee. In this example, this is an electronic data record request, and it is an existing fee, 6.2 on the city clerk's schedule. And I think it's important to note that it says electronic data record request. This is for a non-existing disk, the cost of producing the disk, and any mailing cost. So all of those things are, by nature, it's a collaborative effort. It takes about 0.17 hours. When you times that by the factor, you had a cost of delivering that particular service under the 2013 model of 19. Updating now for the efficiencies that we've recognized in the 15-16 budget, that cost is being decreased to $17. So you would see a resulting user fee decreasing from $19 to $17. Now back up just a little bit and give you the insight. Direct costs are such things as salary, benefits, services, and supplies. And oftentimes what happens is you'll see change in staffing. If there are retirements, as we've experienced in the last couple of years, you've got people coming in that are providing the same level of service, but it is a different dollar amount. So as a result of the lower cost, that's how you're able to recognize direct cost in the 2015 year less than what they would have been shown in the 2013 year. The suggested action is to approve the proposed revised fee schedule. Most of those fees would become effective immediately because they are downward adjustments. Any remaining fees would become effective 60 days out, meaning July 14, 2015, and that would then be in time for the 15-16 budget year. What we would then do is then revisit this process again next May in preparation for the 16-17 budget year, update then for known labor cost, and then review those results in study session and make the appropriate recommendation at this time, or at that time. The other thing that I would say is moving forward with this action, while it is a downward revision, number one, it maintains the 100% cost recovery of delivering that particular service. That's important because it then helps us to continue to ensure fiscal sustainability, and then also it helps us to minimize our operating transfers. And by that I mean if you don't charge the cost of delivering the service, and this is for those that are receiving a private benefit, then recognize there would be a subsidy from some other funding source, and in most cases this is the general fund. So this is one of those ways to, with minimal impact, this is one of those ways to minimize the draw on the general fund by allowing 100% cost recovery. With that, I'll conclude my comments unless you have any additional questions.
Is there any questions of Yes.
I do have a question. Going back to your direct costs, do you calculate that by department?
Yes, we do.
So, and what I'm thinking of is there a great difference between different departments and then even within a department having to do with a specific task. Is that taken into account? In other words, a task that is always done by an entry level versus something that a director has to do, or is it just an average?
It is looking at the various components. For instance, with the city clerk, we were looking at that particular schedule. On that particular fee, if the director is involved, it's a percentage of that director's time. If there are other staff involved, a deputy clerk, it's a percentage of their time at the appropriate dollar amount. So it's
so it matches.
It matches,
okay.
yes. Yeah, the slide is a little misleading. It's a very simple slide, but it's a very complex process. There are lots of moving pieces, but it is that detailed. It's down to the exact calculation as to the person that is delivering that particular service.
And their salary. I think that's important for people to understand that we're not just taking an average of a whole department, but we're really going down to who's performing the task to get your actual cost.
Yes, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Charlotte.
Yeah. Could you tell us more about why the average cost of fees is going down in 15-16?
Sure. I kind of said it broadly, and I'll go back and kind of reiterate. We've got
overall, not just for the one department.
Overall direct cost, and direct cost, our largest portion of direct cost is the salary and benefits area. And what we're experiencing with the salary and benefits area is we are seeing, and we've seen it over the last couple of years, we've got retirements where people are retiring out. So you figure you're retiring out at a higher salary. I'll use my department as an example. I've just recruited for 2 entry-level positions. So
I thought you said you just retired.
Not yet. So I've just recruited for 2 new positions. They've come in at a much lower salary level than their predecessors. That then gets factored in because now they're performing that same task, if you will, but at a lower rate. That happens kind of broadly all across the agency, and it's captured on that unique schedule, if you will. So the movement in the city clerk's division is captured on the city clerk's schedule. The movement in the finance division is captured on their schedule. We're seeing quite a bit of movement in the public works area because they've got some movement there. So those are the things that you're seeing reflected in those areas. Again, tying it back to the actual cost of delivering the service and the staff that's providing that. One other thing that is, it's in the benefits area, and it's something that is not necessarily within our control as well. For the 15-16 year, we're actually seeing a downward reduction in our workers' comp. So that's an anomaly that usually workers' comp is seen to increase year over year. But for 15-16, we've got some rates that are going down. And so we're seeing the fiscal impact of that as well. That is another component that factors into calculating the user fees.
Thank you.
If I, Mr. Mayor and council members, if I could also add, in addition to the retirements, we did have over the last several years on separation, we've kept some of the positions vacant and we've streamlined the operation. Additionally, we had a number of significant contracts that came up for renewal that we renegotiated at a lower rate, and obviously while keeping the same programs and services. So there's been a collective effort over a number of years to reduce really our direct costs.
Any questions? Ronnie, I have a question. You've talked about direct costs. What constitutes the indirect cost?
Costs are such things as other department expenditures and then citywide overhead. So a lot of our internal service allocations, i.e. our human resources operations, our not general services, but information technology, changes to those expenditures are what's captured in the indirect cost. And in the previous years, we've had some computer replacements, if you will, things that are on a cyclical basis that you'll see them 1 year and then maybe you won't see that cost for the next 4 or 5 years. You're seeing the impact of that as a year-over-year comparison, or the fiscal impact.
Any other questions? Yes.
Ronnie, do you think you could, maybe expand just a little bit that what's being proposed tonight is as close as we can come to what the cost of providing this service is vis-a-vis the ratepayer? In other words, this program takes months to complete. It's very thorough, and it's quantifiable, and it's a direct input of the staff and the employees to get what the true cost vis-a-vis what the rates are to the public. Would that be a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement. All of those things that you stated are indeed correct. That is why we enlist the use of a consultant that specializes in performing this particular task. NBS Consultants is one of those that is recognized for their user fee model, and what they do, what we have benefit of by running it through that process as well, is that they can test to make sure that reasonable estimates are in place. They can test that if something looks a little bit out of whack as far as industry standard or the time estimates that are being provided. What they do is they provide a very good reassurance that, number one, the user fee factor that is derived at is correct, and then the appropriate time estimates to that. One of the things, and I failed to mention that with user fees, is that you are not permitted to charge more than the cost of delivering the service. So that's the additional test that the outside rate specialist provides. They make sure that our user fees are not set at something that is recovering more than 100% of the cost of delivering that service.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we'll open the public hearing and ask if anyone would like to comment. Yes, Matthew, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. We tried this trick before in the last time we did user fees. You know, you say you're going to reduce user fees. I think we should see some of those. I mean, last time around we saw a reduction of a couple dollars, $10. You know, I'd like to know how much time developers are using staff's time. And the thing is, if we're going to increase user fees, and if the staff's time is tied up with development, like Jan mentioned last time, they're so busy up there, tied up with so many developer projects, it takes a lot of time. And I would like to know how much time is being used. If the majority of the staff's time is tied up with development all over the city, those fees should probably go up. And let me remind you, you have also approved a hotel fee to promote tourism. You know something? How about promoting some of the empty buildings in town that are not going to be maintained? Take a look at some of them. They're scratched up, they're dilapidated, and because you need to do something in that area, you need to have some type of promotion. And you know, the stormwater inspection fee is $300. I could go on and on about the fees, but I can tell you, you have a lot of empty buildings in here, and you need to have some type of fee. If you're going to have a hotel fee to promote tourism, how about a fee to help deal with a small business owner who wants to have a business out here? You can't continue down the same road. Again, you mentioned already you have empty buildings all over. You can't just say Amazon is diverting all the business. The fees are expensive here. And, you know, as a person that's talked to a couple business owners and are trying to get things done, it's extremely time consuming because the time is being spent with developers, okay? We've heard this before. Remember your grant money, you had a conversation, and one of the gentlemen here said, I don't have time to do some studies on whether we can get something accomplished in that area because I'm too busy. The time is being spent on a lot with developers. I want to know how much time exactly on all the project. If somebody comes in, they're a business owner, and they want some time regarding a change to put a sign or to move a wall, what's the time frame? Let's talk about that. And again, you say you're reducing fees, but I haven't seen any examples tonight. Last time around, we saw a couple. This time, there's been none. What are you doing to reduce fees for business owners? Let's have examples. I saw no examples. $8, $10, let me remind you, is not a big significant thing. You have empty buildings around town. If you live in this town, you'll see signs are popping up everywhere. We need to address that, and the way to address that is reduce fees to get those buildings filled up. Again, take a look at some of them. They're not in the greatest shape. Thank you very much.
Your Honor, I got to answer one question for one thing that was mentioned that we only deducted of $2 or $3 few dollars here and there. Well, I'm looking at these fees and pages and pages and pages of reduced fees, and they range anywhere from $3,000 something reduced to $2,200 to $1,500. You want to keep going down the line? They're not $200 or $300. They've been reduced significantly. That's all I want. I'm getting my say now. That's all I'll say. They're here. You want to read it? Okay, I'll give you a read. I'll let you read it, Matt. Matt, you can go through all that. It's been out here. It's in the agenda. I'll give it to you for agenda. You'll have it for yourself. You can explain it to everyone. But we're reducing fees. We're reducing fees like crazy. And for someone to say barely, that's false. Don't feed that to the public. Here it is. You don't give this to public.
Okay.
Let's
not argue.
Don't come back and tell us this stuff. That's wrong.
We need a sidebar here. Yeah.
Okay.
If I could add some fuel to the fire, no, just kidding.
Yeah, please do.
I did want to make more of just a numerical response to Mr. Lorimer. Of the 160 plus or minus a couple of fees that we presented in the table, it's in our public report. Of the 160, 155 have a drop in the recommended recommended fee change this evening. Some are in the thousands, some are in the few dollars. They are for cost recovery, and it's a very objective report in how we determine that. But the point is, out of 160 fees, about 155 of those fees have a recommended decrease. There's a couple fees that are new. I think there's 3. So they're not either higher or lower. They are just a cost recovery. There's roughly 5 that have gone up incrementally, but not that much. In terms of development fees, as Mr. Campbell noted in his second slide, these are not development-related fees. Development fees are separate and independent of these fees. These are user fees that are independent of the development fees. So the developers pay their own fair share for use of the city infrastructure, city staff time, and the impact on the overall total city costs. And we haven't adjusted those in here.
Okay, is there anyone else wish to be heard before this matter for the City Council? If not, we'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the council?
Your Honor, I'll start
Yes.
it off here. I was interesting. I read in the paper a couple weeks ago that the city of Simi Valley is going through the same process that we've been going through the last year. And the reason why I asked this question about the fees is I think all of us up here are very sensitive to the fees that we're charging the users. And that's why we commission that we go and we quantify what is close to the exact cost of the fees that we're charging the user as it cost us to implement that service. And I thought it was very interesting that from this year to last year we have seen a decrease, and we get that through a lot of reasons, but not the least of which is the efficiencies that each department is having. And there is a possibility that in subsequent years that we could see some lessening of the fees too, through a lot of efficiencies and other methods too. So I want to also let everybody know that this isn't just thrown together in a couple of days here. This is a very thorough report. It's a very thorough amount of staff time. It's a consultant that we hire that takes this very, very seriously, because we're extremely serious about the type of fees that we charge. And we are business friendly here in Camarillo, and we have been for a number of years. And as a business owner, there's a lot of stuff and a lot of reasons why business goes up and it goes down. Fees are definitely a component of this, but it's not the only component here. There's a lot of issues going on, and this council, I know, will continue to keep working on our business model in this city. I can assure you of that. So I can support this. I think staff has done a good job on this. I was very pleased to see the efficiencies have not only leveled off but decreased the number of the fees that we do charge the user. And I really feel too that since we're going to be doing this every year, that we're not going to see the peaks and valleys and the spikes that we have seen in previous years here too. And we can actually see decreases here because we're doing this on a year-to-year basis. So with all of that, I can support what's submitted here tonight.
What else, Mike?
I think the staff's done a great job because they're following up on something we asked them to do, especially you, Bill. You led the charge on reducing fees when you first got aboard, and I appreciate that. And staff's done a great job of going forward and finding out where we stand and also how we stand with other cities. And I think our fees here are very fair. If someone says we're way out of line, wrong, give me your facts. Let me see your facts. We got our facts. We know we're not. We're very fair in our fees. And I think with all these reductions, I mean, everything, I think we looked and said, what? Everything's being reduced. Our whole fee structure is different than it was. So I think I appreciate what staff did, and I'd like to second the motion. You made a motion, didn't you, Kevin? Nope, you didn't.
Just made a comment.
I'll wait till comments, and I'll make a motion.
Well, any other comments? Just two things. First of all, as you said, Councilmember Morgan, I did have some issues with the fee schedules when I first arrived here. I still have a philosophical issue with some of the fees being charged 100% cost recovery. I think there's some public benefit in some of those fees that allows us to have the information by having people come and give the information that is beneficial information to us, and they shouldn't have to pay 100% cost recovery. But I've lost that battle a couple of times, and so I'm not going to bring it up again this year. However, I do appreciate the changes that have been made in the fees themselves, and while we can say it's all, we have good consultants, we have good way of recording all this cost. But frankly, in the last year or so, the city manager has made some major changes in personnel and how they organize themselves, and that saves some substantial dollars, and that's all reflected in these fees reductions. So it's a combination of a lot of things. So anyway, do we have a motion?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor? Jan,
Jan's been
I'm
trying to
sorry,
get his
Jan.
attention.
I didn't see you over there.
That's okay. I think the important thing here is this wasn't done just arbitrarily and picked a fee and said, we want to reduce this one. There is a program, there is a model. It's based on actual time spent, actual costs, so that you basically can defend what these fees are. So have them go up, or in this case have them go down, it's done for a very logical, precise reason. And I think that's really being fair. And I think all of our staff in every department for doing a good job, for being efficient and being aware of doing things as efficiently and as quickly, but still being very professional in what they do. And I think that's really a lot of what you're seeing here, along with those, change in personnel. And sometimes it's looking at who can provide that service at perhaps a not quite an expensive rate, but still giving the good service. That way that cost doesn't have to get passed on. So it's, like you say, it's a combination of a lot of different things, but it certainly wasn't arbitrary. There's a model that we go through, and we will continue to go through on a yearly basis to make sure we're being fair to the public.
Thank you. Is there a motion to?
I was just going to say that we've kind of skirted it, but the reason it's important, I think, when we last discovered it, the reason it was important to four of us to have full cost recovery on these things is so that the people who use the service are the ones paying for it, and people who don't use the service are not paying for it, are not subsidizing it. And I'll just remind you, Mr. Mayor, that when you were city manager here, you were 100% in favor of that.
You were. I remember that too.
Well,
you've got a record that we can pick on, Bill.
Shows you that someone can change their mind.
Change their seat.
Based upon additional information.
And position.
And we have a motion to...
I move that to adopt resolution establishing a user fee schedule.
Second?
Second. Oh, you seconded it? Or you're asking for a second?
No.
He's asking for a second.
I'll second.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Yeah, right.
A vote? Excuse me. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have another public hearing, and that deals with, let me get to it. The
Michael's been pacing.
I want to see this one.
Good evening, Mayor Little, council
Yes.
members, fellow staff. As a recipient of community development block grant money, the City of Camarillo is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, to prepare a 5-year consolidated plan, an annual action plan, and an analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. The AI is also required to be updated every 5 years. The annual action plan describes the use of CDBG funds in this fiscal year 2015-2016. The 5-year consolidated plan serves as the official application to HUD for the CDBG program. In preparing the fiscal year 2015-2020 required 5-year regional consolidated plan, the City of Camarillo, in a cost-saving move, participated jointly with the cities of Simi Valley, Ventura, and Thousand Oaks, along with the county. The annual action plan describes how the City of Camarillo fiscal year 2015-2016 CDBG allocation of $285,078 will be spent over the program year that covers July 1, 2015 to June 30, 2016. On March 11th, you may remember that the City Council held a public hearing and we allocated the funds. The analysis of impediments to fair housing choice, in accordance with the Fair Housing Act, HUD grantees must administer all housing and community development related programs and activities in a manner to affirmatively further the policies of the Fair Housing Act. Therefore, each community is responsible for conducting an analysis to identify impediments to fair housing choice within its jurisdiction, taking appropriate actions to overcome the effects of any impediments identified through the analysis. The county and select cities hired Veronica Tam and Associates to assist us in the preparation of the AI and the con plan, which was great because Veronica Tam and Associates, as you know, has helped us with our housing element and things like that. So it made my life easier because a lot of our information was already on their computers. We've prepared a PowerPoint tonight. With me is Jessica Sumanjaya of Veronica Tam and Associates, and she'll present the first half of the PowerPoint, which includes like the analysis of impediments and the consolidated plan, and then I'll come back and I'll present the action plan. I'd like to present Jessica Sumanjaya.
Move this down a little.
Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Jessica Sumanjaya. I'm with Veronica Tam and Associates.
Thank you.
So before we get into the specifics of the funding recommendations for this upcoming fiscal year, we just wanted to take a few minutes to give you some brief background information on the 3 plans that are being presented to you tonight. As Michael mentioned, all 3 plans are required by HUD as a condition for the city receiving CDBG funds on an annual basis. The first of these plans is the Analysis of Impediments to Fair Housing Choice Report, which we typically refer to as the AI. Now, the AI is a regional planning document, and the City of Camarillo partnered with the county and the 9 other incorporated cities in Ventura to develop a regional fair housing plan. And this regional AI identifies all of the fair housing impediments and obstacles that may exist within the county, and it develops a strategy that jurisdictions within the county can implement to mitigate or remove these fair housing obstacles. The second plan we're presenting to you is the consolidated plan. And like the AI, this is also a regional plan, but the planning area for this is slightly different. The regional consolidated plan covers the entire county of Ventura minus the city of Oxnard. And like Michael said, the consolidated plan is essentially a funding application for HUD funds. It identifies all of the housing and community development needs within the planning area, and it develops a strategy for addressing these needs using federal funds from HUD. Now, in identifying these needs in the community, we found a lot more needs than there are available resources. So we had to prioritize certain activities for the upcoming 5-year consolidated plan period. And these high priority activities are identified on this slide. And you can think of the consolidated plan as a comprehensive strategy with overarching goals and priorities and objectives. But for every year that the City of Camarillo receives its annual allocation from HUD, we have to specifically identify how we plan to spend every dollar. And that's where the annual action plan comes in. So at this point, I'm going to turn things back over to Michael to go over the specifics of the action plan.
Thank you, Jessica. So as you remember, on March 11th, we approved several things, and one of them was the housing rehabilitation program, which the city's actually doing, and we have about 10 applications in right now, and we have a list of about 10 more people online, so it's very active and it's very successful, and the loan committee is doing a lot of work on that. Habitat for Humanity is doing some neighborhood revitalization programs, and they're working on several projects right now, and we're moving forward. Public services, we were able to get $42,761. Fair housing, which is required, we do our $12,000 annually. And then administration is $45,000. For public service funding, we gave Interface this year $10,000. We gave Long-Term Care Ombudsman $8,000. We gave Oasis $5,000. We gave RAIN $82.50, Turning Point $5, Livingston Memorial Visiting Nurses Association $5, Caregivers $1,511 for a total of $42,761. The requested action tonight is to approve fiscal year 2015-2016 to fiscal year 2019-2020 analysis of impediments, and then we won't have to do it for another 5 years, which would be great. And then also the fiscal year 2015-2016, fiscal year 2019-2020 consolidated plan, and then also the fiscal year 2015-2016 annual action plan. This authorizes submission to HUD for funding. We're going to need some quick signatures from Bruce by tomorrow because we have to have this sent in by Friday. So I have a couple of pages for you to sign tomorrow if we're successful in getting this approved. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Anyone have any questions of either the consultants or the staff?
No.
Okay, I think we've got them. So we'll open the public hearing. Does anyone wish to make comments on that? Oh, yes, Matthew.
How you doing?
Just fine. How are you doing?
I had something really good. Terry Brady's having work done. Several people have had work done. I tell you, things are really good. I want to give kudos to the city on that. I want to tell you, these projects that people need in this community are great, and Michael's doing a great job. I know they're doing Terry Bray's, and they've done a couple around town, and you know something? It's an excellent. You got the right person doing it, and I have to commend the city. I know I come up here with different issues, but this one is right on target. And, you guys support it. I appreciate that. I know as the president of the HOA, the lamplighter, several of the residents, it's helpful. And it works real good. And the staff, people in the park have talked about that. They've called the staff on different issues regarding these projects, and they've been very helpful. So I just wanted to say thank you to the City Council, thank you to Michael, and thank you for all the people who are unseen, who can't be seen here, the people who do that work. There's a lot of people who do things behind the scene in life. We should always thank them, no matter if they're not here tonight, whatever they do, whether they touch the hammer, whether they dot the I on the paperwork that goes to Michael, and you folks for standing up for that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Just a comment, we have a good staff, we have good consultants, and the other thing we have in this community and county is good service organizations and good operations such as Habitat for Humanity and some of the other things that really do the work out there. I mean, we guide it and fund some of it and everything, but it's really those people who carry it out.
And lots of good volunteers. Habitat for Humanity wouldn't be able to do it without their wonderful volunteers.
The county is full of volunteers.
What I was proud to see was Captain McHugh from the base. Remember Captain McHugh from Point Magoo?
Sure.
He is very much involved with Habitat for Humanity, and he's out there working with them and doing a good job.
So, okay. Anyone else wishes to be heard on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll move to adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 15 to 19 regional consolidated plan, fiscal year 15-16 action plan and analysis of the impediments to the fair housing choice, and direct staff to forward the document to HUD per their requirements.
Second.
Moving to second. Is there any comments? If not, please vote. Motion carries 5-0. That includes our public hearings, and we return to the 5 o'clock agenda with new business and oral communications.
There we go. Okay.
City Manager.
I have two quick items, and then I'm going to defer to Mr. Campbell, our finance director. He wanted to make a couple of comments on a bond refund. I attended the water tour up north in the Delta, and we were very fortunate. I went with Mr. Morgan, along with 30-something other folks in the county. We were really fortunate that the first day of the water tour was the day after the governor announced his specific plan. So we were able to meet with some of the key people that have been involved with the project, and they're able to really give us some insight into the project, the real up-to-date stuff. And then I last week attended a Fox Canyon board meeting, and it was a privilege, and it was a very productive meeting, and we will be working further on our desalinization plant as a result of that meeting, and I think we have some good plans ahead of us relative to the meeting and what we need to do. Mr. Campbell had some comments on our water rec bond refund.
Thank you, Mr. Feng. I just wanted to make mention that we've been meeting with our consultant, our financial advisor, in regards to our 2005 wastewater bonds. So very shortly, in your capacity as the Camarillo Public Finance Authority, we'll be needing to gather you as a meeting body to go through the process of refunding those bonds. It's very attractive in spite of the bond market's been kind of going crazy over the last couple of weeks. But the latest analysis that we've received, if you'll recall, we've done a number of these refundings. Now this would be my third. An industry benchmark is if you can achieve a present value savings of about 3%, that becomes the minimum threshold for refunding. The latest estimate that we reviewed, this was just on yesterday, we'd net somewhere around 9, almost 10%. Wow. So we think it's very good to move through this process. It's going to be just a little bit different than the last one that we went through for the CDC. It will be through a competitive process, and it is going to be at advanced refunding because we're just a little bit out as far as the window to do a current refunding. But all of the numbers work favorably to go ahead and do it now rather than wait and not knowing where bond prices may go. So the schedule that we're looking at is to bring it for you for action either on your June 24th meeting or the July meeting, depending on how quickly we can pull together the preliminary official statement. This would result in a refunding of the 2005 wastewater bonds, a significant savings, about $130-some thousand in annual debt service, about 1.9 present value dollars savings over the remaining life of the bonds.
What's the size of the
The outstanding amount right now, I got it, is $18.8 million.
Wow.
And it's going to go down to
That'll help us.
To refund it, we're going to save approximately 1.9 in net present value. We're talking about dropping about 1.5 percentage basis points from the current bonds. They're right now an average of about 4.79. True interest cost per the latest analysis would be around 3.28. So again, this is kind of reflective of what we've seen in the last couple of months when we've done the refunding. Recognize that when these were issued back in 2005, totally different interest rate environment. I think what's key again is to look at the benchmarks. If you can achieve at least a 3%, that is kind of the green light. It makes it worth your while. We're well above that. We're sitting right around 9, almost 10%.
10%?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask one quick
Yes, Jan.
That 10% does, and it takes into account the cost for doing advanced refunding?
Yes, it does.
Wow. What would it be without that?
I don't have that one captured in the stat. And actually, there's I can forward it to you later on. There's a cost of waiting, I think is what it's called. It was kind of interesting because it's the first time I've seen it. But what it attempts to do is it attempts to take the same analysis and say, well, if you waited until you got into that current refunding period, what is your cost of delay? And so even factoring all of those things in, we're still yet at about 9, almost 10% present value savings.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you. Is that it, Mr. Manager?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Attorney?
I have no items.
Okay. City Council, let's start. Jan, would you like to go first?
Sure. A list of meetings. We had the policy committee meeting having to do with our rent review ordinance. I think it was a very healthy meeting. We got to have some good discussions about the ordinance, some of its pros, some of its cons, some of the items that needed to be clarified. So we've given staff a few tasks to go back and review a few things and give us some more information. So we will be having another meeting before we bring anything forward to the City Council. At least one more meeting. I can't guarantee there might not be more than one. But I want to thank everyone who participated, and I think it was great from staff and from our community members who attended. I want to thank staff for putting together the Law Day dinner. That was the time last Tuesday, or a week ago Tuesday, I guess, that we did indeed recognize the men and women of our police department, and we want to every day thank them, but that is our one time a year where we do take them out to dinner and officially thank them for the good job they do every day. I met with the Legislative Committee twice since we've met, and I'll let Mrs. Craven, maybe you can take the Hannah Beth Jackson one. But we did meet with her, a very informative meeting, and then we also met on Friday, reviewed many of the pending bills, and we'll bring a recommendation to the council shortly. I think we have to have one more meeting as well on some other ones, but we'll bring them to you, I guess, in 2 pieces this year. And then I have a comment, or perhaps a clear the record. We have received dozens of emails and letters lately regarding the building that's taking place in Camarillo, particularly with the drought. And the project normally they are referred to are the Springville and the Mission Oaks townhouse projects that was just approved by the Planning Commission. And as I say, to clear the record, unfortunately, I have become guilty by association, so I would like to take a moment to clear the record. I did not vote to approve Springville projects, and I voted against the change in zoning from light industrial to residential in order to develop the Mission Oak townhome projects that are along the Santa Rosa Road off-ramp. So in many of those letters, it referred to all of us as having approved that, and everyone else can speak for themselves, but I did vote no on both of those. And also, I have a request, and I'll give you a little background on why I have that request. On April the 7th, 2015, the Planning Commission met and on a 4-1 vote approved RPD 194 Comstock Homes, Hawkeye Investment 2. The residential planning development calls for 129 new for-sale townhomes on 8.66 acres. The project is commonly referred to as the Mission Oaks Townhomes, or to many, the Off-Ramp Project. On April the 9th, 2015, I received a copy of the Planning Commission Action Report for their April 7, 2015 meeting. In reading that report, I noticed that the word water was never mentioned. The report covered the configuration of the buildings, the parking, the spa, the color of the stucco, but not a word about water. Because of California's drought and the governor's April 1st executive order, I felt it was appropriate for the City Council to review the Planning Commission's decision to approve a project for an additional 129 homes on a parcel that is set fallow and has not used a drop of water in 40 years. On April the 9th, 2015, I sent an email to the city manager formally requesting that my request for an order to review be placed on the City Council agenda. On April the 10th, I received the following email from the city attorney. He says, Bruce Fang has requested...
Excuse me, that would be an attorney-client.
Well, I'm just going to give the process. I'm sorry, I'm not going to give you all the words.
Well...
I'm sorry. Let me put it another way. He gave me the municipal code. I'll do it that way. The municipal code is public record. Attached is a copy of Camarillo Municipal Code Section 19.26.26 for my reference. It says that an appeal is filed with the appeal form, attached copy, and a payment of the fee, which is $2,219. Or you can have an appeal before the City Council if the City Council approves the order of review. Then, due to the somewhat unusual circumstances of the date of the Planning Commission and the City Council, there would not be another City Council meeting in order for me to request it of the City Council. So because of that, then we had to go to the option of asking for a special meeting of the City Council. And in order to do that, you have to have either the mayor request it or a majority of the City Council can request it. The City Attorney, and I might add, we did not violate any Brown Acts. The City Attorney did ask that question.
Excuse me, Councilmember McDonald.
Yes.
You're revealing through your comments discussions
said?
that I had with you.
Okay, then I won't do that one. Let me get back to fact again then. So what did not happen is I was not able to request in public to hear this appeal. This gets to my request. I'm trying to give you the history here. Because of the timing between the Planning Commission and the City Council, a sitting City Council member was not able to request the City Council in a public meeting under public discussion this review. So what is wrong, in my opinion, is our Municipal Code Section 19.26.260, Planning Commission Decisions, Appeals, Council Review. Because I was not able to bring to the City Council in front of the public for public discussion a request for a review. Now this happened it happens more often than you might think. It happened on the April 7th meeting. It happened on their next meeting, that they met in a time frame that would not give any of us the opportunity to bring this before the City Council for the time that it becomes, I skipped another part of the appeals. I got off on your topic. The City Planning Commission's approval stands 10 days from their vote unless it is appealed to the City Council. So within that 10 days, if you can't bring it towards the City Council in an open meeting, then you have to go through this other process. So what I'm asking, and the long story short, is I'm asking that we review Municipal Code Section 19.26.60 Planning Commission Decisions in Review. And I think it's important for a transparency standpoint. I don't think we should have an elected body not be able to review an appointed body's decision on any topic. And I give you my example because it's something that just happened to me, but I think it could happen to any of us on any given topic that we weren't able to bring it forward. So if there's no objections, I would like to make that request.
Your Honor, could I just say something?
Yes.
I think that the council needs to have a good discussion of this before staff goes out and rushes and starts rewriting an ordinance. And I will just point out that during a time when there were two Planning Commission and then council meetings within 10 days of each other, I did make such a request. On the Steve Thomas, I'll still call it an atrocity, the black building, and I was the only vote to reconsider. So just because we discuss reconsidering doesn't mean we're going to be able to reconsider.
But we were able to have that conversation here in public, and that's what I'm saying. You can win or you can lose, but you need to have that discussion in public, and it needs to be all of us sitting together. And that was what the opportunity wasn't there in this particular instance.
Mr. Mayor, if I can comment just to help assuage council of any angst about whether this can happen again, recognizing the situation. It truly is a matter of calendaring the Planning Commission. And so what Joe and his people have done is they have rescheduled the Planning Commission meetings for the remainder of the year and then going forward to ensure that we don't have this problem. And so that there would be a situation where you will now have, within that 10-day period, a City Council meeting following a Planning Commission meeting. Now, the reason why this happens is because you have a couple months during the year where the Planning Commission is right next to a City Council meeting. And that happens maybe two or three months of the year, depending on the year. Right. Recognizing this, it's just a simple matter of changing the Planning Commission schedule to ensure that there is a council meeting following it in a timely manner. So, we can go ahead and have this discussion, but we believe we've solved this problem for you.
Let me ask you, are you permanently changing the date and week of the Plan Commission? For all months or just for those months where there's a potential issue?
Only in this current calendar year, only in a couple months where there's potential issues.
So on those months, they will meet on a
We're
different,
going to adjust the
a
calendar.
different week.
Correct.
But doesn't that cause, again, a problem with the public who's used to seeing the planning commission meet on a certain date?
Well,
It's advertised as a public hearing.
the fact
Like
of the
I'd always
matter is, very few people attend the Plan Commission meetings unless they have business to do with it.
We quite frankly don't really see it as an issue. Those,
Well, I did.
Well, because you were affected, and we've corrected it. And so, but again, if the council wants to have this, further discussion, we can. But we believe we have solved the problem.
Well, you know what if I could?
Yes,
What
go
I
ahead,
might
Ken.
suggest is we try this and, we'll get some data and see how that is. And then if we find that it's not working, none of us want to get into this situation again. But we can try this, and if we see that it's not working, then we can have a discussion and see if we want to go back to a policy and a procedure and see if we can do a little better job. But I would think that this would be probably the most viable way to try to deal with this situation at this particular point.
I would agree with you.
Same here.
Yeah. So,
As long as it solves the issue.
solves the
That's
issue.
what I'm after. I gave you an example, and remember, I know a couple of us have done it. Mr. Kildee did it on the wireless tower, remember that? And if you hadn't had that timing right, that issue may never have gotten to us, and it was an important one.
Appreciate you bringing it to our attention,
Thank you.
and it's apparently got resolved by good staff work. Thank you. Anything else? Jan?
Oh, no, that's all I had, thank you.
Mike?
A couple things. I'm not going to go over the policy things because she went over that with it. It was a good meeting. A lot of the good things came out of it. There's some other things that could be corrected, and we will have future meetings. But it was a productive meeting with our city attorney, and who else was there? Joe? I forgot the other person that was there. Our city attorney.
Jeffrey was there.
Jeffrey. Anyway, it was a good meeting, and we went through and corrected. We'd made some good changes on the thing, and I think we'll continue doing that, make it better. Law Day dinner, I won't go into that because I told you before, we're the only city that does that for our police department, and they thank us very much so for appreciating their work. So you can tell people how our city is doing great. Ranch House Foundation, I'm going to leave that one for Bill so he has something to say on this stuff. AWA, we had AWA, just a general meeting of AWA, Association of Water Agencies. And we had to set up our next meeting in, when is it, in December. That is a meeting where we all come and the sponsors come and other legislative officials come. And somehow I got in, it was like, okay, you got it, for looking for a place to have it. So I'm myself and Joe Price over from Thousand Oaks. He and I are working on that. I won't go into any more. We also discussed a lot of water issues. This is fun to see. Several of us on that board were on that trip, and we were able to say some of the things that we saw. And by the way, if you haven't been on that trip up there now, that's over 100 feet down. Our lake is over 100 feet down, and this is not even this is a season that's supposed to be at the top, coming in from runoff and flowing over sometime. It's at least 100 feet. I don't know what you'd estimate, but it's more than 100 feet down, and it'll start going down even more and more because there's no water going into it. And our summer and hot times coming, we are in deep stuff for water. So I'm hoping we get this desal plant going soon. It sounds like it's got some good chances in next month of getting that done. APCD, we didn't have a meeting this month. We have two of them in June. CASA, Charlotte and I went to a CASA meeting up in Sacramento, and that was the bill time when all the bills are going through, and you'd meet a legislator in the hallway, and there's so many people waiting to get into the meeting, you couldn't meet him. He'd say hi and bye, and that's all it was in one of them. But we have a very good representative up there. We visited with Jackie Irwin, and Jackie also did the speech for CASA one morning.
Keynote.
A keynote. She was keynote speaker, and she did a great job. And so she listens. She comes and asks what she can do for us. A lot of things. So I think we have some good things to expect from Jackie Irwin. That's all.
Charlotte?
Well, I'd like to tell you I attended so many meetings that I just used up all my voice, but I don't think that's why I lost my voice. I did attend a lot of meetings, though. I attended the CASA Ledge Days, as Mike said. I also attended the League Ledge Days. They were back-to-back, so it was really nice. You just had to fly up once and fly back once. And I really learned a lot, and being on the legislative committee, I think it helped me a lot to make recommendations to you, which leads me to one of my other meetings, or two of my other meetings, were the city's legislative committee, and that met twice, as Jan said. We have a long list of bills that's going to be coming to you, I guess, at the next council meeting, and then we have more that we're going to be looking at a subsequent meeting. Our other meeting was with Hannah Beth Jackson, and it was a very interesting meeting. Sometimes when you meet with your legislators, you get a total of, if you're lucky, 20 minutes. When I met with Julia Brownlee, we were told, I think, 20 minutes, and it lasted maybe till 25. But Hannah Beth came in on a Thursday afternoon as she was coming home from Sacramento and sat down at our table, and we had 90 minutes to talk to her, and it was very productive. Some of the things that she asked us to take a look at were very relevant for our city, and we have not, there are more than 1,000 bills introduced, so you can't catch every one that might possibly affect you, and some of them we're going to look at a couple in our subsequent meeting, and we might be making a recommendation. But I thought it was a very, very good meeting, and we established a good rapport with her.
Charlotte?
Right there in the conference room.
Charlotte, could I, while we're there, and before you leave the next one, one of the things that I forgot to tell you is there's some very important changes they're looking at. And one of those is being pushed by the Latino conference group, and it's changing CEQA. This is the first time it has a chance of really doing it, because everyone thinks we've got to change some CEQA, make it easier. Now, I can't wait to see what the final product is, but I think that's going to benefit. But there's others, all I think of is, well, raise the taxes. We're going to raise gas tax. Remember, Charlotte? Gas tax by 12 cents, and diesel 13 cents, and your registration 35%. And so they're looking at those kinds of things to make their improvements.
And if you don't have anything else, they want a $100 fee from you to go to the DMV.
Exactly. If you're an electric car, you're going to pay a fee of $100.
Because they're not using it.
They're not using, it's an in lieu of fuel fee.
Exactly.
You mentioned that Hannah Beth Jackson has a single bill, but she's...
And we'll be looking at that. Okay. Another meeting I attended was the University Site Authority meeting. We looked at the 2025 vision plan. We looked at the new housing plan that they have that's only a part of the 2025 vision plan. They asked for our approval, but of course the Site Authority, who would bear the financing for paying for it, was asked for its approval after it had gone to the board of directors, or whatever the governing body's called. But now, Matt, quit playing with your phone, because you're going to be interested in this. One thing that came up at the University Site Authority meeting, and I'll just explain to you, the Site Authority is pretty much the only redevelopment agency left in the state of California. It was formed at the request of Jack O'Donnell and passed by law, and it was set up to finance construction at this university. In other words, the state is paying very, very little or nothing, depending on which talk Dr. Rush gives you, toward construction out there. There was a big deal made about Mr. Broom giving $6 million for the library. What was never said was that the Site Authority financed the other $21 million for the library. So the housing out there was built by the Site Authority and then sold, and the rents are paying off the bonds. So sitting on the site, and I have sat on the Site Authority board since the very beginning, which must have been about 1996 or 7. It was long before the university opened its doors. We, as a Site Authority, received a notice from the state fire marshal. And I thought this might be of particular interest to you, because you have talked to us about having parking on both sides of the street in Lamplighter. Parking one of the illustrations you used were the streets in University Glen, or as I think you called it, the housing out at the university. The state fire marshal sent us notice that we are here on notice and have so much very short time to get rid of the parking on those streets out there in the housing area because it's too narrow under the state code. Just thought you'd be interested in that. I attended the Citizen Appointment Committee with Mr. Little, and we selected somebody for the Camarillo Council on the Aging, and that will be coming to you at a subsequent meeting. I attended the RDP 21 meeting, and let's see if I can find that note here, because I have the dates for the air show. Yeah. The air show is September 26th and 27th at Magoo. And at the end of July, there's another black dart. I don't know what they call it. He just called it black dart. And there'll be a whole lot more air traffic for 2 weeks.
Let them know the Blue Angels will be back for the first time in a long time.
That's right. Blue Angels will be back September 26th and 27th. A few meetings ago, we talked about the T-bid. The words are not coming to me, but the Camarillo, help me with the name of it.
Camarillo Tourism Business Improvement.
There you go. And somebody brought up the hotel tax, and then we got Airbnb into the conversation. So I looked up, and there just happened to be 9 places listed on Airbnb for Camarillo. And then a resident made a suggestion to me that I thought might be something really good. We did it years ago in a previous drought, and if it's been in this city scene, I don't remember it.
Sure. But Airbnb means area bed and breakfast, right?
Air, not area. Airbnb. It's like it's all conducted over the internet, and you find your place.
Bed and breakfast.
Yeah, bed and breakfast. But they're still hotels, and some of them are renting their homes out monthly and weekly through Airbnb. It's not like it's people come for the winter, and some of them. Anyway, there was an article in the Ventura County Star about 3 places in Ventura, and so I thought I'd look up and see if there were any in Camarillo. None of them were as fancy with the fancy bathtub they had in the paper, but at least according to the pictures. Anyway, the residents suggested to me that we run something in City Scene telling people if you run your shower, how much water you're going to use per minute. So they can, and if you're going to be using your hose, they usually don't have flow restrictors, how much that is per minute, and those kinds of things. And I think it'd be good to run that list again. That's all, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Kevin.
All right, I attended a VRSD meeting. I also attended a Utilities Committee meeting, I believe with Bill, and that item happened to be on the agenda for tonight. I attended a Transportation Committee, and one of the good news is with that is that the accident rate at Granada Street is down dramatically from what it had been in previous years. And
good.
Tom was there and gave a very good report on that, and we're looking real good with our traffic flows in the city, and our speed rates seem to be right in line with what they need to be to keep the traffic flowing at a reasonable rate. So that was good. There's a couple of items. I've noticed that Kinko's building looks like it's not in very good shape. And I was wondering if staff could go by there and see what's going on with that. I'm not sure if Kinko's owns that building or if the owner of the shopping center does, because that's a little different. I believe it is.
It's the normal guy we deal with all the time that doesn't do his job.
Yeah. We need to take a look at that. I know some new trees have been planted there, but it looks like the surroundings have not had any TLC in quite a long time. So if we could take a look at that, I'd appreciate it. I appreciate it. I think Tom sent me an email on what it costs to replace a tree in the city. I appreciate that, because I bring up something at a later date about the trees down Ponderosa, and specifically the pine trees there. I was wondering, as I drive by Las Posas and Lewis Road, where that there used to be a workout, Jack in the Box, but adjacent to that, that building's been vacant for quite a while. And is there any updates, does anybody have on that? It looks like the infrastructure is maintaining that real well, but it's been vacant. I think at one time the county was going to put some medical offices in there, but nothing ever happened to that. So maybe if you could get back to us at a future date to see if there's any updates on that.
We have been in contact with the property manager, and they're interested in upgrading their sign when they have a tenant. So they're actively providing lease options in the market, and they just haven't had anybody sign a lease.
I talked with the owner, Kevin, probably 2 months ago about it because it's been sitting so long. And she just said they've had trouble finding somebody to take it.
Not the best location for that kind of thing.
Now with school going in, though, it could be a good location.
Could change.
That's true.
Could change right
Once
now.
the school opens up, there may be more traffic in that area.
And also, I had a call from a person that lives outside the city, but as we all know, there's a number of several water agencies around, and he was having a real difficult time finding out what his particular water restrictions are. And he did get on their website, but it hadn't been updated in a number of months, and the information was not current to him. And, we're all reading what the governor is requesting, but there are some Camarillo addresses out there that are having a more difficult time to find out specifically what their water restrictions are. And the question I have, is there a number that I can give them? Is some up-to-date information from United Water, or
Should be on their water bill. Phone number.
well, would it be? I've never seen their water bill. and I
Everybody's
didn't-
water bill usually has a phone number.
Yeah, well, he needs to. That's a good information, because I've never seen their water bill, so I didn't know where to send him.
Yeah, they would call the number on their water bill and ask the staff at that water company.
Exactly.
Because
Some of them are
everybody's-
pretty small, and
Yeah, the
they're not always
rules are
open,
different for
but
each
yeah.
water agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, okay. I also had another constituent that called me up that he just installed, because we're talking about water here, continuous flow of hot water through your house. And he went down to, I believe it was, I can't remember where he got it, but for about $300, he installed this continuous water flow right next to his water tank there. It took him maybe an hour to do it, and
Take longer than
apparently
that.
what you do is when you turn on, I don't have one as you can see, when you turn on, there's continuous water, hot water, so you don't have to wait for your water to be.
It's a little more complicated. We put one in the last drought. Well, the first drought I remember, which was in 91, I think, 92 maybe we put it in. You have to put the pipes from the water heater to the last place in your loop. So ours goes to our bathroom showers. And then it can flow in the regular way, and it flows back. And you use a lot less water because you don't have to run anything to get your hot water.
So I guess my question is there, the Be Water Wise, is there ever any thought maybe of giving a coupon or something so we can get people maybe to get 20% off the cost of this, and maybe they can install it? Is that even an idea that's
Yeah, I
even
just
worth?
put a big bucket in my, and
Well, I
warm
know.
up, and then take it downstairs and feed to my plants.
I know, but a lot of people.
Everybody can't do that.
Yeah, and that is my thought. If it's relatively inexpensive, not including the cost of installation, But if you could buy this for $200 or $300, it would seem to me to
It
try
must be pretty handy to get a plumber, and because getting a plumber in there to put those pipes over your through your attic is probably more than $300.
Maybe could you look into it and just see if there's any feasibility, if any other cities
I think it's a very good water saving thing, and it saved us a lot of money on our water bills, and that's one reason why we don't use a lot of water, because you don't have to run the water to get hot water.
Okay, and I just have one other, as long as we're talking about water. And I was thinking about the reclaimed water that, with the sports park there. Is there, and I'm kind of thinking, this might not have any legs to it all, but I was in a city, and it actually had a water truck go and watering the medians there. And I was thinking, if the drought gets significantly worse, is it feasible perhaps for our water truck, if we even have one, to help water some of the infrastructure that we've got in our streets? Is that even...
They water some of the trees.
We do that now.
Do you do some of that now?
Yeah, we do some of that now that we don't have landscape irrigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Rose Road.
It would just seem with the... Well, I was driving down there, Jan, and that's what it's drying out. And, I'm thinking, is it, Tom, is it feasible even to use some of that reclaimed water for this purpose? Or
Yeah, as mentioned, we do from time to time need to dispatch a water truck if we have to put more water on an area that needs spot treatment. And in the past, we would use potable water. Now we're using recycled water. We've actually hooked up a connection where our water truck can pull up and tap into our recycled water.
Oh, good. Glad to hear that.
We can't get too far ahead of these guys.
Yeah, I know. Jeez. One step ahead of the posse, huh, Bill?
While you look at your list, can I ask, following up on that, could you use that water to spray down where they're developing and grading?
Developing what?
Yeah, yes, we actually do have it set up where water trucks for developer or contractors can pull up and fill up as well.
Are they doing that at Springville?
I don't know on Springville.
Do you mind checking
We'll
and
check.
see?
Yeah.
Because they're in that process of grading. Every morning I see the water trucks out.
Good idea.
Thanks, Kevin. That's a good idea.
Thank you. Well, every now and then, both brain cells work. Thank you, Bill.
Okay. All right. Couple of things. First of all, I attended the VCTC meeting last week, and the main two items there. One, we had, you probably read in the paper, a real brouhaha about the ADA recertification. And after going through everything, we reaffirmed the hiring of the current company who's been doing it now for the last 3 to 4 years. They're located in Camarillo and Flynn Road. Also, and speaking of Flynn Road, you may recall a few months ago we had these young people come in from Oxnard who were upset because they had no public transportation to get to their jobs either at Flynn Road or at the outlet center. Well, there's now a commuter bus approved for the next year, as well as funding for that bus beginning in October to be ahead of the any hiring for the holiday seasons. So we got that taken care of, and they're going to be running that bus. I think it's four times a day, 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening or afternoon. 10 of the Camarillo Ranch Foundation, the main there is they are in the process of looking for a new executive director, and will be and are in the process of recruiting for that position. And financially, they're starting to make some headway in getting some of their financial issues squared away. Citizens appointment, already been mentioned. Utilities Committee, already been mentioned. I guess the biggest thing I got involved in with the staff and is the desalter presentation we made last week. That was preceded first by a meeting with Supervisor Long to fill her in on what our position was. And the DeSalter meeting was interesting, to say the least. First time I'd ever been to the Fox Canyon.
Can I jump in and say I attended that?
Yes, you did. And I'm glad you're attending them, not me. So it was a very interesting process. I'm not even going to get into it. It's just, I will say this, though. I will say this, that if we end up with a water disaster in the state, it won't be because the people haven't tried to conserve. It won't be because agencies like ourselves have tried to do whatever we can do. It'll be because of the regulatory people at the state and local levels.
Exactly.
And so,
Your Honor, it's a very interesting process at Fox Canyon because you have the cities represented, you have the county represented, you have one person who represents all the water districts except one. You have one person who represents farmers, and you have another person who represents a huge water district. And that's all by law in the enabling legislation. And so in order for everybody's concerns, everybody's druthers to be considered, it takes a long time.
well, it certainly does.
Too long.
I mean, 7 years from start to finish, and we still haven't gotten a decision in 7 years is I would say, a long time. But what am I to know about it? We have just, again, emphasized what Mike Morgan and I attended the tour of the Rancho Campana High School. That's going to be quite a jewel in our cap when it's finished. And they are really working. They've got over 100 people a day working on that project. So I had an interesting experience. It's been years since I was out at the Youth Authority, but yesterday I went out there and gave a little talk to about 15 graduates. I shouldn't say, there are 15 scholarship recipients of young men and women who have gone through a course of study out there that they've, and there is a citizens group of people, most of them centered in Camarillo and Ventura, I think, that have raises money for the various things, among which is to give $1,000 scholarships to certain people based upon their taking tests and doing work and their behavior. And I was very impressed that there was a number of these kids that you could tell had come up and at least through some of the gangs, and they were getting scholarships to go to school, and it's on their initiative. They were the ones who do it, and they talked about how they are looking forward to getting out of where they are and into something, a better life. And so it was really, really good. I also attended a PTA dinner where they awarded honors to a number of the school, Pleasant Valley PTA groups, the various schools in the district. Not all of them, but most of them. Attended the Law Day dinner, after which I got sick and ended up in the emergency room. Yeah, so.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so when they were talking about the emergency room, I have a up close and personal relationship with.
When he was making a speech, he was not feeling well.
I was not feeling well. Anyway, and then I'm going to raise another issue that we've talked about, and you probably read in the paper that the conversation between that we had 4 weeks ago about Camarosa and the county and creating a new. Well, as you probably read, the county has stepped in and said we want a piece of the action. And we had talked about maybe we should put our 2 cents in, if the county did, to say that we ought to be on that board. So I don't know whether we want to do it now or we want to just wait and see what happens. But I'll throw it out and see if we want to agendize it to talk about getting on in, because I think the time frame applies to us as much as it.
No, we can't be part of that 90-day process.
Okay.
The 90, because it's only for people who are in there, and we don't, as a city, are not part of Camarosa.
Well, we are.
So to be,
half of a quarter of our cities in Camarosa.
I know it, but we don't control the water there.
That's true.
They have some say over it and who can put in wells. And,
In a very small section of it.
no, they can say who can put in wells in the whole thing.
I'm saying the reason they're part of it is they've got a little small.
Yeah, a little small section of
Why are
it.
they qualifying going out there and being part of that?
Well, I guess the question is,
Well, we can't decide that tonight.
But I think what,
we want to
Yeah,
agendize it and talk
yeah.
about it.
oh, I think we do, because even if we can't be the lead, we talked about the fact if they set up this regional body, we wanted to be one of the peoples or whoever, yeah, attached to it, so. I think it's a great idea.
I'll go for that.
City Manager, is that?
Yeah, the last time we visited this item, you gave us direction, and I'm going to start, and Mr. Fox has a much better memory than I do, but basically we agreed that we would contact, if the county agreed to jump in the race, which they did, that we would contact the staff with the county and Cam Rosa and set up a liaison committee meeting. And it would be a voluntary process, but I think they would be more than happy to come and meet with us and keep us in the loop. It's roughly, I think, now that the start, I think it's June 6th or so, somewhere in that range, that the last, anyone else that wants to join in has a deadline. And then I think it's roughly an 18-month to 24-month process, and there's also some cleanup legislation that may come down. Actually, it needs to come down to clarify what the process is to do this, to select.
Well, would you follow up to see?
Yeah,
that we
sure.
get
We'll do that.
Cam Rosa might like us on that board. 'Cause
I
we'd
think
probably
they will.
Be more with them than not.
And,
Can I ask for a clarification on that before you leave that one? I thought it was that anyone could do it, but you had to be someone who had the expertise to manage it. That you couldn't just be someone who was a mechanic or something and said, "Oh, I'm going to go do a water agency or manage a basin." But anyone who had the expertise to do it, which obviously we're a water agency.
We are eligible to join in if we wanted to compete with the other two entities. We can do that.
So we were just told we couldn't.
Well, no, it is confusing. The guidelines are not real clear. They do list examples of agencies that could submit notice to be the GSA. And I think the one category we could fall under is we do have land use authority over some of the Cam Rosa service area, and that would qualify us. And then if we were interested in doing that, as the city manager mentioned, I believe it's June 2nd would be the deadline to submit our notice. I don't know exactly how complicated and time-consuming it is to fill out the notice, but you would obviously then have to take action at your second meeting in May to make that deadline. The other thing, just to clarify, we did submit a letter to the board before they took action, requesting that if they did take action to submit their notice to be a GSA, that as they develop the governance structure, they include the city. We can check to see what action, how that was included in the action.
Okay. With what was just said, I would like to go along with what Mr. Little said in the first place, is that we agendize this on the next agenda so we can actually talk about whether to do it.
Yeah, because I'm not sure that we want to be the GMSA.
I don't think so.
No, but it's
We
this.
might want to be on the board of
That's
whatever GMSA gets established.
And then once you throw your hat in the ring, then you can be a part of that discussion, because you always said you could pull out, but you can't get in.
Would you? Okay, thank you. A couple other things. First of all, everyone's talking about changing landscaping and everything else. I'm following a different drummer, and I've acquired some several hundreds of pounds of this Cool Planet biochar, and I'm going to be putting it on my lawn and seeing how that works. And then they say you could...
Biochar.
That's Cool Planet. We have this company here in town called Cool Planet, and they make a product called biochar. Well, they call it...
It's a byproduct of their main product.
Byproduct of their main operations, which is...
What does it do?
It retains water.
Water. And you put it on your... you put a lot of it on. I mean, several hundred pounds.
They're little itty-bitty black crystals.
And you
And
put
they
it on
absorb
and it
water.
retains the water. I will give you a report in about 30 days, let you know how it comes
I've
out.
been using it in one of my raised beds, and it works pretty well.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
That's the one out there by Audubon Society, out there by the
No,
recycling area?
it's out on San Pablo.
No, they're on Malpaso, aren't they?
They're on Las Paso. They moved.
Yeah, they're over off of Flynn.
They're off of Flynn now.
Okay,
They're
they
Mount
moved.
Paso.
Because they were out there, I toured the
Yes, they
plant
were.
years ago.
Well, we
Maybe
had a business visit about 6
Maybe
months.
we could get him to do a demonstration project like on the library lawn or
We
something.
we have been using it, have we, Tom?
No.
Yeah, our street division is currently has some test areas that they're trying the product out as well. One of them is going to be actually on the grass area of our median, so when we have to, at the end of this month is when we will turn off the sprinklers to come into compliance. And we're going to have part of the median that will have this product applied while it's being watered, and then part of it, and the rest of it won't have it applied. And we'll see how much longer it takes for the one area that has this amendment to turn brown.
They tell me that you could save 30 to 40% of your water bill.
Wow.
So I'll let
Yeah.
you know how it goes.
Yeah, but don't you have to get it? Don't you have to get it mixed in with the dirt under where the roots are, as opposed to putting it up on top of you would with grass?
That's true for the garden areas, but for the lawn, you just.
Oh, really? Well, I don't have a lawn, so
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
Finally, and I just want to, last month, I pointed out that I had a daughter here with my wife, and now I have my oldest daughter with my wife. And Connie, stand up. This is my oldest daughter, Connie Little, and she's a nurse and lives in the city of Wauwatosa, Wisconsin.
Where's
visiting for a week. So, all right, that's all I had. So, anything else?
That's it. Closed session.
Okay, we got closed session, so
To adjourn the Camp Santa meeting.
okay.
No, you got a closed session on that, Kevin.
You might want to reopen that.
No, is this a capital improvement?
That was all it was.
Oh, that's right. We did it.
Yeah, you got closed session. Yeah.